Despite the Saintess's warnings that bringing his powers through the portal would endanger him, Min casually grabbed her by the collar, then happily left, taking his fully cultivated dark magic with him. The space-time gate opened right before her eyes, leaving the Saintess stunned, bewildered, and completely floored. What the hell is that? Shouldn't a dark magic user be unable to open a space-time gate? Well, maybe that applies to others. But there's nothing I can't do, so farewell, and I hope to never see you again, Saintess. Landing in a half-kneeling, half-crawling position in his own apartment, Kim Min-jun was drenched in cold sweat. This space-time journey had consumed a great deal of his energy, but seeing the familiar scenery with his computer and beloved phone, Min's spirits instantly lifted. He couldn't hold back any longer and immediately logged into his favorite game in a state of utter bliss. Cannot connect to the network. Please check your connection status and try again. A notification that was like a bucket of cold water splashed on Min's joyful mood. At this exact moment, a squad was secretly approaching Kim Min-jun's building to carry out a mission. Even the men assigned to this mission had no damn clue why grunts like them were here. But facing monsters wasn't a lucky break, it was a terrifying mission. Just as they noticed movement and prepared to act, they saw Min strolling casually down the street. It should be noted that this road had been restricted by the military to ensure public safety. The civilian who just returned from the devil's grasp was just sulking because he couldn't get an internet connection to play his game. Could it be that in the 2 years I was gone, the technology in this country has devolved? The soldiers called out to Kim Min-jun, telling him to come over. But it quickly changed to a warning young man run. Kim Min-jun was bewildered. Behind him was a giant wolf with a massive set of jaws. This stupid dog isn't even worth punching, Min thought, frowning. But at the same time, he discovered that his dark magic energy had completely vanished. Min grabbed the wolf's forehead with one hand. With an unchanging expression, he slammed its head down with a thud, cracking the tiles beneath. Not only the wolf was surprised, but even the soldiers were stunned by this sight. They thought without dark magic, Min would be just a cripple, but no. I'm still strong as hell, okay? Remembering the hellish training in Isgard, Min still felt a lot of resentment. But why did this little thing show up here? After finishing off the dog, Min just stood up and turned to apologize to the soldiers, which still sent shivers down their spines. On the way to the evacuation base, the soldier told him he could go to jail for wandering around that morning. He was also surprised because Min was like a wild man. Kim Min-jun made up a story about being abroad. He also wondered what had happened during the 2 years he was in Isgard. The dungeon phenomenon appeared when he was about 7. He remembered the soldiers who had defeated the monsters. With the appearance of dungeons awakened, superhumans also emerged with abilities surpassing normal people. They joined the newly formed Hunter Corps at the military base and quickly eliminated monsters as soon as they appeared. Before Kim Min-jun was kidnapped, the Korea he knew had no dangers within residential areas. Dungeon and Stone. The server on Min's phone hadn't completely disappeared. It was so hard to get back, and now I can't even play my game. Isn't this depressing as hell? The soldier driving was also very curious about Min. But remembering the scene of him fighting a wolf bare-handed, he thought it was better not to be nosy. Finally, Min couldn't take it anymore. He turned to ask the soldier with a serious expression, but his words were jumbled. Things like monsters and dungeon theory were now even taught in universities, and this soldier had gotten an A in that subject, a score that those with bottom-tier GPAs could only dream of. The reason the situation worsened was due to strange phenomena that started appearing from dungeons 2 years ago. Dungeons began to appear more frequently larger, and the number of giant monsters also increased. The army could no longer control the dungeons, leading to the isolation of some residential areas, using various measures to fight back, but facing a shortage of manpower. But that wasn't what Min wanted to know. Your listening comprehension is really problematic, young man. How old are you now? He suddenly asked. Min replied that he thought he was 21, and the soldier said he should enlist immediately. With the current situation, all military service was for 5 years, and at Min's age, he should have already received a registration letter. The problem was starting to get serious. Now I came back to play Dungeon and Stone, but now I have to face 5 years of military service. What the hell is this? Just then, Min received a military enlistment notification message from the government. And the deadline was tomorrow. Yep, it's 100% accurate. Because Min was so shocked by this bitter truth, the soldier suggested he go to the PC room near the evacuation base to check. Back when Min was in the Isgard Empire, He had a nonsensical yet philosophical conversation with a swarm of spiders about his chaotic and endless work as a dark mage. To use insane skills, a dark mage needs dark energy, but that energy source is not as abundant and endless as the mana of ordinary mages. So the question he posed to the swarm of spiders was, what is the best method for a dark mage to replenish and retain their dark energy? Unfortunately, the spiders had all been sent by him to have tea with the king of hell, so they couldn't answer. And at times like these, the only thing that could appear was the dungeon boss, the spider's nest. This little one didn't come here to answer him, but to win this battle. However, Min was also here for that very reason. Seeing its offspring die tragically, the Spider Queen let out a roar filled with burning rage. Min saw and Min judged. Its answer is completely wrong. The answer is to defeat monsters with maximum power. As he spoke, he punched it straight in the brain to seize its dark energy. That was 645 days before Kim Min-jun returned to Earth. In the present, he was invited to the military base for tea. The person who greeted him was the battalion commander. The man asked if he had any special reason for applying to the Hunter Corps. He replied that he had some business in the dark dungeon, an incredibly nonsensical answer that made the atmosphere fall silent. After that, the man burst out laughing, praising Min for being humorous. Thanks to this humor, Min was exempted from the cost of breaking the hall floor. Kim Min-jun awkwardly drank water. I wasn't even joking. What's so funny? All dungeons appearing in Korea are managed by the military, and the top priority regarding them and monster conquest clearly belongs to the Hunter Corps. They consist of highly skilled individuals where you can get promoted regardless of your service time as long as you prove your abilities. There were no limits, so Kim Min-jun was thinking of joining the Hunter Corps to single-handedly wipe out most of the monsters in the dungeons. And in that process, he could very well have a chance to encounter monsters with dark energy. When that happens, along with super-fast progress, he would be able to recover his lost power. Yes, and that's everything that happened in Min's imagination. In real life, it's just a few painful blows. A rosy life is not guaranteed. But that wasn't what he was thinking about. Then the dungeon warrior forces could relax and develop their fourth awakening, and I will become a high-salaried public service hero, a perfect plan. At this moment, Hunter Corps Sergeant Lee Sung-ho came to report. The man who had hosted Min immediately introduced Kim Min-jun as the recruitment target he had mentioned earlier. Looking at Min, Lee Sung-ho was skeptical of his hunting abilities. Then he told him to open a status window and show him his stats. Although Kim Min-jun wasn't too pleased with this attitude, the task still had to be done. The status window was something Isgard also had, but he rarely used it as it only provided bland statistics and abilities. I just don't understand why this thing is here. Under Lee Sung-ho's pressure for information, Min's face contorted. It reported an error. Lee Sung-ho thought he was being played, and his face turned red with anger. Meanwhile, somewhere in Gyeonggi-do, where the Hunter Corps training center was located, a private conversation was taking place in the battalion commander's office. The commander seemed very pleased with this meeting after 10 years. The person he met was the descendant of an old comrade. She was Hunter's son Yunseo. Although he called her that, Yunseo denied it, saying she was just a new recruit. And if he called her here because of her father, she didn't expect any special treatment. The man calmly explained that he might have given her the wrong impression, but it was clear that preferential treatment wouldn't happen in a merit-based environment like the Hunter Corps. Moreover, he just wanted to give her a few words of encouragement before the training process began. At this moment, through the window, he saw a vehicle entering the barracks. The man chuckled, remembering he had received a funny report today, and that Sun Yunseo might get a very interesting comrade. He asked if she wanted to go meet this person with him. Kim Min-jun stood below, craning his neck to look at the towering building in front of him. He had seen, and he had judged. It's hard to calculate how much tax money was poured into this facility because it doesn't look like a joke at all. Seeing his overly dramatic expression, Lee Sung-ho reminded Min to tone it down, as staring like that was offensive. And because he was a special case, he would personally test him. If not for the headquarters decision, he would have wanted to drag Kim Min-jun to Yongchang immediately. Once all the tests are done, and Min is confirmed to be a liar, he should be ready for immediate enlistment into the military police. Wow, this seems to be a super stingy guy. The test for Min was to move this super huge and also super heavy red boulder. Even just an inch would be enough to pass. And the time for him to complete the challenge was 10 minutes. This mineral is called a bloodstone, a product created from a dungeon. Not only is it extremely dense and heavy, but compared to its massive size, this is already a ridiculously hard challenge. I'm so glad the test is this simple. Under Lee Seung-ho's frown, which looked like it could trap a fly, he began to speculate on one scenario after another. Watching his test were not only Lee Seung-ho, but also the man from before and Sun Un-seo. Telling her about Min's situation, he still couldn't stop laughing. It's all because of that faulty status window. But because of that, it also makes Kim Min-jun unique. This ore was something Kim Min-jun was very familiar with back in Isgard, and obviously he could easily push it. But greed told him that there might be dark energy inside, and with unwavering faith in his intuition, Min punched the giant ore to pieces. Everyone present at the scene was wide-eyed and open-mouthed, witnessing what just happened. After a punch as strong as a sledgehammer came down, the ore cracked open. Revealing nothing inside, Min's disappointment was visible. It's unclear what happened, but this soldier was drenched in sweat, his eyes wide and white, panting heavily. And the whole troop of soldiers behind him was no different. Before enlisting in the Hunter Corps, they all knew the training here wouldn't be simple because they would have to participate in real combat right after training. The main training was to train like crazy for 4 weeks. A prime example was what they were doing now, carrying sandbags up 6,000 steps of a slope. But that wasn't all, as the demon drill instructor Lee Seung-ho would constantly push them while checking their completion time. With such a brutal physical training method, what everyone looked forward to was their stats increasing, even if just a little. Everyone thought it was the same for all of them, since they were all new soldiers. But nope. While the whole squad was panting like they were about to die, Min was unusually excited. The little guy was running and smiling, dashing like an arrow with a super light body. If I had magic, I could probably fly. Kim Min-jun didn't look like he was training at all. It was more like a mountain stroll. He left the straggling squad far behind, enjoying the wonderful feeling that the training in Isgard could never provide. Thinking of the overwhelmingly delicious food here and also the free time after completing the schedule. Thinking of the PC room inside the facility with specs comparable to outside ones, Min felt like he was gaining more strength. He floored it, launching his supercar at godlike speed, leaving the other group already distant even further behind. Seeing Min run even faster than before, the rooster-haired guy leading the group began to question his existence. Very quickly, Kim Min-jun dashed to where Lee Seung-ho was. Seeing Min running like a ghost, he couldn't help but exclaim, "What the hell is that?" Meanwhile, Min stepped onto the last stair and still felt a bit disappointed because the path was too short. Seeing Kim Min-jun finish the path meant for new soldiers, which should have taken an hour, in just over 21 minutes, he was shocked, stiff. Meanwhile, Min was constantly spinning around and asking him about the reward ticket for going out if the completion time was less than 30 minutes. Lee Seung-ho didn't answer him, just silently pulled out a piece of paper. Min grabbed his reward and vanished, leaving Lee Seung-ho staring at the displayed time deep in thought. He secretly resolved to observe Min more closely. The new soldiers returned to their room looking half dead. The rooster-haired guy, seeing his stats increase by only 1 point, still shouted in excitement. The guys in the room gathered to congratulate him, and he turned to ask Kim Min-jun about his stats. As for him, he thought he had misheard when the guy was happy with just 1 point. Back in Isgard, his stats would increase by 10 points every day. The rooster-haired guy then asked how he planned to use the ticket. Everyone was envious of his achievement, but more than that, they wanted to learn his training regimen to improve more. Back in Isgard, no one wanted to interact with him just because he was a dark mage, but the atmosphere here made him extremely excited. Hearing that the PC room was open again, Min rushed over there. Sitting in front of the computer, he felt like he was in heaven. Looking at the clock, he started calculating, leaving himself 2 hours for sleep. That was already more than enough compared to Isgard, where he didn't even get an hour of sleep. Watching him play League of Legends, his comrades thought he was still using 2G in the era of 4G and the upcoming 5G. It went on like that for a whole week. During the training run, Kim Min-jun didn't break a sweat and just treated it like a casual stroll. Meanwhile, he mostly played games during his break and only slept for 2 hours a day, maintaining this for the entire 4 weeks of training. People even thought he was a monster. I don't accept that title, but I want to be the hero who shares water with everyone. Does anyone want some water? No one refused that. A lively scene of a mother hen feeding water to her chicks was unfolding, when a person approached and yelled into a megaphone that the lieutenant was very disappointed with the team's performance. They were the worst squad. The lieutenant wanted to take them to train in a custom dungeon. It's the type of dungeon that usually disappears after you defeat all the monsters and bosses, but sometimes there are dungeons that persist. In that case, it will transform into a convertible dungeon, changing its internal structure daily and becoming a great training facility to experience all kinds of different environments within a dungeon. Real training in a convertible dungeon is custom dungeon training a nightmare for all new recruits. The lieutenant was very satisfied seeing this reaction from the new recruits. After sowing fear, he motivated them with a big reward, a 3-day, 2-night vacation pass. Assuming the recruits would be excited, but no, they all still looked miserable. There was one person who was extremely happy, none other than Min Vacation Pass, here I come. On the day the custom dungeon training began, the new recruits almost fainted just from seeing the entrance gate. A truck carrying a horde of pitch-black monsters with glowing eyes sped by, causing all the recruits to panic. The new recruits were so scared seeing the ferocious hounds that they scrambled in panic, falling onto the ground. An experienced player like Min, however, found them as cute as a pug or a chihuahua. That fear didn't get them out of this training session. The lieutenant ordered the recruits to form groups of 4 to enter the convertible dungeon. All teams would fight one hound for an hour and then return. Each recruit would be provided with an exclusive protective armor set from the My-D2 Hunter Core, produced for the purpose of mechanical body protection with an extremely crude and heavy design. The newbies already struggling found it even harder, but everyone thought this equipment was too little, thinking it was better than nothing. Only Kim Min-jun knew that this monstrous thing was not only uncomfortable, but also useless. Its only merit being its high price, a shiny item, and I don't like it. Lieutenant, I have a question. If we can defeat the hounds quickly, are we allowed to take off this gear? A bold question that surprised even the lieutenant. But looking at the person asking, he felt there was nothing unreasonable about it. But remember, this is a team training session, and you can't just excel alone. Looking at the worried and bewildered recruits, the responsibility of carrying the team, it's simple. Just teach them how to fight monsters. What's there to worry about? Thinking is doing. Min enthusiastically showed his colleagues how to fight monsters in a way he considered extremely easy. After a while of demonstrating and explaining, Kim Min-jun looked at the newbies with sparkling eyes, even though he hadn't won any victories yet. And of course, the inexperienced newbies couldn't understand what he was saying, all of them looking blank. The lieutenant ordered the instructors to release the hounds. The dogs, instead of charging at the humans, ran straight into the dungeon without hesitation. This confused the recruits. Kim Min-jun gave a faint smile. They were captured all day, and their home just appeared. Why wouldn't they go home? But how does Min know? Because his time in Isgard compared to these hounds now wasn't much different. At this moment, the lieutenant arrived and accused them of fooling around during a very serious mission. Therefore, the whole group had the honor of being the vanguard for today's training. After the lieutenant finished speaking, an instructor used a baton to herd them into the dungeon. The 4 of them walked through the bright green gate together. Min had told his teammates that if he could take off this armor, he could even solo the whole pack. Outside, the lieutenant used the radio to command the instructors inside to guide and control the recruits' situation. In a rock crevice, 2 instructors were waiting for orders. Realizing Kim Min-jun was also in the first group to enter, the 2 instructors stared intently through the crevice. Kim Min-jun was eager to fight monsters. He was clearly calculating both individual and team combat strategies. After a moment, he turned to his teammates and said, "It's coming." His teammate was clueless, not understanding what it was. Kim Min-jun then added that it was a pack of hounds coming together. As soon as he finished speaking, several hounds charged out. The 3 recruits in his team couldn't hide their panic and screamed. Min calmly reassured them that the armor was very sturdy and then boldly stepped forward to face the dogs. These 3 were also very smart. They split into a 3-pronged attack. The one that charged straight at Kim Min-jun was sent straight to hell in the blink of an eye with just 1 slap. The others attacking the other recruits survived a bit longer. But it was nothing because he arrived and kicked one of them, sending it to join the first dog in hell. After dealing with the dog, he turned to instruct his teammates. In a flash, only 1 dog remained. This time, Kim Min-jun didn't solo it himself, but stood back and directed his 2 teammates to fight. He was so skilled that the 2 hiding instructors were stunned, wondering if he was a recruit or the commander-in-chief. Under his direction, the other 2 recruits quickly cornered the dog until it stopped breathing. One instructor said, "Could that guy be a Hunter Corps sergeant who regressed to the day before his enlistment?" Things like that only happen in novels. But anyway, Min had cleared this round brilliantly, so a high score was certain, and his teammates were also dragged past the average score. The two instructors came out of hiding and guided the group to the exit. Min excitedly asked them what score he got, and if he would receive the vacation. Talking so much it got annoying. Kim Minjun compared them to a large Sunda Korean blood sausage, making the scarred instructor's eyes glaze over. At this moment the ground shook again, signaling something bad. The scarred instructor hastily ordered them to turn on the radio to broadcast outside before it was too late. The recruits thought it was an earthquake, but it was actually the dungeon transforming right at that moment. The result of the transformation was unknown, but right now the exit was closing. Of course it was too late to get out. The radio was no longer working. The structural transformation time was supposed to be in over a month. What the hell? But the urgent matter at hand was that they needed to escort the recruits to a safe place. After reaching a safe place, the instructors reassured the group before finding a spot to discuss their battle plan. An unexpected situation like this was quite concerning, so the first thing to do was to stabilize the team's morale. The instructors already knew the situation wasn't great. If this dungeon turns into a closed dungeon, it might be harder to beat than I thought. But it's just a complicated situation, not the worst since I'm here. The scarred instructor told his comrade that the dungeon had turned into a closed dungeon. The other instructor looked very muscular, but when he heard about this case, his overreaction made the scarred instructor grit his teeth and curse. In their current situation, more monsters would appear. The only way to escape a closed dungeon was to defeat every single monster inside without any outside support. 4 inexperienced recruits and 2 instructors had to conquer this dungeon. Ever since they were informed, everyone became tense. They didn't know what kind of monsters had appeared, and if they were unlucky, this could be the end for all of them. But we can't just sit still. We have to keep moving while we still have energy. It would be better if the instructors were fully equipped. In this situation, even just goblins would be enough to wipe us all out. It would take the scarred instructor more than 10 minutes just to take down one. The most feasible and realistic plan was to utilize the armor equipped on the recruits. If the recruits went first, the instructors could defeat the monsters while they were held back. But an instructor's pride wouldn't allow him to do that. While walking, Kim Minjun suddenly flinched and froze. While everyone was still shocked, the lead instructor clutched his face and screamed, spewing out his lunch before collapsing unconscious. The remaining instructor immediately ran to check the situation. Kim Minjun tried to stop him, but it was too late. He suffered the same fate as the scarred instructor. The main fighting force had all fallen. Kim Minjun quickly told the other soldiers not to rush forward if they didn't want the same to happen, and Min went to check the situation himself. Since it wasn't serious, they had only fainted. He wasn't surprised at all because he had smelled a very familiar scent. Kim Minjun glanced into the cave, then grabbed the 2 instructors, tossed them to the recruits, and told them not to follow him, just to stay near the exit. After that, he charged into the cave like a tiger returning to the jungle. Kim Minjun was extremely excited that that thing existed on Earth, the thing that made the instructors faint dark energy. Even the people of Isgard were covered by a special protective layer to avoid this fate. It was dangerous for ordinary people, but for a top-tier dark mage, like Kim Minjun, it was just a mosquito bite, nothing at all. In fact, for him, this was a battery pack after so many days of being starved of energy. Inside, the space was covered in a dreamy, mystical pinkish-purple hue, and no trace of monsters could be found nearby. However, just by tilting his head up, he could see the hiding dog, a heavy-class dark hound. When he first arrived in Isgard, he had almost lost his life to the claws of this species. But now he was very happy to see its familiar face and, thanks for the meal. Min decisively delivered a finishing blow, ending the beast in an instant. A huge amount of dark energy poured out, and Min absorbed it all, leaving nothing behind. The blood of this hound species was poisonous, causing flesh to rot, but it was useless against a dark mage. The dark energy gave him an extremely exhilarating feeling. Such a large amount of energy only charged him up by about 5%. Based on how the instructors reacted, this was probably the first time this situation had occurred. The possibility of dogs being able to move between dimensions was even more impossible. Therefore, it could only be the result of him transmigrating back or caused by the saints. I don't know if I'm overthinking it, but right now I need to find that dog's corpse to go back and write a magnificent report. When the scarred instructor woke up and saw the worried faces of the recruits, he hastily asked about the situation. The bald recruit reported that everyone was fine. Only Kim Minjun had gone deep into the dungeon. After hearing everything, the scarred instructor was incredibly agitated. He gritted his teeth at Min's reckless action, but also blamed himself for not protecting the recruits and fainting instead. "Instructor, look!" Another recruit shouted while the scarred instructor was already thinking of a rescue plan. Kim Min-jun returned carrying the dog and happily asked if everyone was okay. The two instructors were scared out of their wits when they saw this giant hound. Kim Min-jun bent over and threw the dog towards the two for them to see. While the group was marveling, the dungeon gate reopened. The scarred instructor still couldn't believe he had defeated that dog. After confirming the situation, he ordered the other to escort the recruits out first, and he would follow. The scarred instructor told Min that he would have to explain everything to the lieutenant himself. Someone like him couldn't help, just like when Min had fought the dog on his own without him. After that, the two of them went out together. Getting praised in the last week of training is pretty nice, isn't it? Just then, the status window finished patching its error. His stats were all at 60 with 10 magic power, and he possessed the F-rank rot skill. Wow, a skill that's both low rank and stinks. Even Min himself was outraged. As for the line founder of the Church of Luminuna, my favorite character, it was just something he made up to avoid crazy fans back in Isgard. How the hell is that crappy thing here too? But it seemed he had weakened quite a lot. The plot is so ridiculous, like a 3-cent third-rate novel, and he couldn't achieve any of his goals if he continued like this. Therefore, he needed to set a goal to recover his strength as soon as possible. It's all because the game company's development is being held back by monsters. This is nothing compared to my time in Isgard. That day, the entire training center was in chaos due to the incident. Everyone was talking about Kim Min-jun's story of defeating the Hound. As for the main character, he was summoned to the command office to report. The leader here was very much looking forward to seeing him after his achievement and wanted to give him a special invitation. "Would you like to hear it?" he asked. "A crane among chickens." These were the words used to describe Min at this moment. Of course it is. The commander never expected that at his age he would still witness such a wonderful sight. A crane trying to act above average to look like a chicken. It would be a national loss to place a genius like this in a regular rank, especially when they needed to recruit more personnel. "I heard you want to get promoted as soon as possible, but according to our laws, privates are not allowed to take the promotion exam for another year. However, if you were granted an exception, that would be a different story. It must be admitted. This man really knew how to lead a conversation. You can tell just by looking at Min's excited expression. Seizing the opportunity, he said loudly, "If you volunteer to join the Hunter Corps in Kaorwan Gangwon Province, I will use my authority as training commander to grant you this exception. If you go there, you won't have to wait another year." The more he spoke, the more excited he became. The commander stood up directly. In contrast to his excitement, Min just remained silent. An awkward atmosphere enveloped them, only missing a flock of crows flying by to complete the combo. While the commander was frozen in awkwardness, Min was thinking about the 104th Division. The Invisible Hunter Corps, a place his comrades had mentioned with a warning to stay away at all costs. The weather was freezing with constant and thick snowfall. But it's not boring at all because dungeons and monsters will always appear unexpectedly. It's the most fascinating place in the rear lines. A wonderful place. For Min, as long as he could get promoted, experiencing it anywhere wasn't an issue. Above all, the conditions there were too ideal for someone like Min. The higher the rank, the larger the operational range, and clearly there was no better way to get an exception than by completing a dungeon mission. So he was decisive. "I will go to Cheorwan." One morning, 3 vehicles and a large crowd of soldiers gathered in front of the center. "Kim Min-jun, you have to call me when you get to the base, you hear." The bald-headed recruit tearfully said his goodbyes as they each went their separate ways to conquer new horizons. It should have been very touching, but who knew that coming from Min's mouth, it would turn into a cold, new misery. Finally, the bald guy left. Everyone had been picked up by people from their new units, leaving only Kim Min-jun standing there alone. Just as he was wondering why he was the only one left, a heavy-duty military truck rumbled towards him. The other person got out of the truck and called out to him loudly. Kim Min-ji possessed a muscular build, a full head taller than Min with a scar on his face, and wearing dark sunglasses looking incredibly intimidating. The man said that the snow had caused a considerable delay and made him wait a long time. Min humbly reported his rank, saying the wait was no problem. The thing he was more concerned about was the snow. "It's only month, how can there be snow?" Kim Min-ji's demeanor was extremely rigid. "Get in the truck." Min started thinking about the harsh training, the frequent monster battles, and the new life at the base, but none of it was a problem for him. The thing he worried about was bullying. That was the only thing he couldn't tolerate. But he still had to endure it, because just one incident with a superior was enough to get him sent to the military prison like a common soldier. After a long journey, the Hunter Corps was right before his eyes. This place actually had snow. The corps belonged to the 104th Division, and Min was assigned to the 2nd Battalion. As soon as the room door opened, Kim Minji gave him a push and said curtly, "That's the new recruit, train him." The door slammed shut. Red hair and brown hair both stared with wide eyes and open mouths. The two asked Min his name. Upon hearing the 3 words, Kim Minjun, they immediately burst out laughing. "Your reputation has traveled quite far, huh?" Red hair snatched Min's luggage and threw it to another bald guy, ordering him to open it. Kim Minjun's face darkened, frowning. Are these the 2 leaders of this dormitory? And they were treating him like a new toy. Brown hair asked him why he came here. Min answered very seriously that it was for combat experience and the fastest way to get promoted. "You're fucking crazy." The 2 of them laughed wretchedly together. Then they started asking about all sorts of random things, most of which were related to girls. These guys are stationed here year-round, so they must be pretty desperate. Too bad. Min was a straight-laced guy obsessed with the opposite sex, so they could only change the subject. When asked to perform a talent, Min raised one finger and said he would do a push-up with just that. While Red Hair was still thinking that was utter bullshit, Min had already gotten into a one-finger handstand. His entire body was as straight as a pole, giving the 2 a reason to be amazed. Being able to do what he did, they mentioned someone with a 3-word nickname, that bastard, and that bastard in their mouths wasn't much, just a sergeant. Just as they mentioned him, the person arrived at the door, his attitude not very friendly. Seeing Min doing a handstand right in the doorway, he spoke in a low voice, his eyes flashing with 2 dangerous red streaks. "Hey, get out of the way." "Oh, I thought it was someone else. Turns out it's an acquaintance. Sergeant Lee Sung-ho." I thought Red Hair and Brown Hair were afraid of Lee Sung-ho, but no. Those 2 didn't spare any words or actions to piss him off. Lee Sung-ho was human after all. It was natural for him to get angry, but thanks to that, those 2 troublemakers finally left. Lee Sung-ho finally let out a long sigh and lay down to rest. Before he could even close his eyes for a few seconds, he pulled out his phone again to watch a lecture video about dungeon terrain. After a while, he called Private Dongjin, telling him to guide Kim Minjun thoroughly. Seeing this, Min very politely greeted his superior, but he wanted to talk after they got to the dining hall. Hearing Min say that, Dongjin was stunned. "You can't just go there whenever you want." Dongjin led Kim Minjun to the cafeteria and generously treated him to a meal. If he had known beforehand that Min would wolf down 300,000 won worth of food in one go, he probably would have heeded Min's earlier warning about his large appetite. Unfortunately, there was no magic to help him go back to the moment he made that foolish decision. While eating like a pig, Min asked Dongjin about not being allowed to eat there normally and needing special privileges. "Privates and lower ranks can only come here on weekends," Dongjin gently explained. "Also, to use the gym, you have to be at least a private first class, and to use the PC room, you need to be a sergeant." Hearing that almost made me choke on my snack. Guessing he found those rules unreasonable, Dongjin helplessly reminded him to get used to it. "Is there no way to change it?" Kim Minjun immediately asked back. "There's only one option, which is to keep getting promoted. That's a given. But since the restriction on using the PC room was absolutely unbearable for a hardcore addict like him, this was a huge problem." The 2 had a very open conversation about promotion. At this moment, a rooster-haired guy came over, put his arm around Dongjin's shoulder, and asked about him with an extremely mocking and ill-intentioned attitude. He was Sergeant Kim Gwang-shik. Seeing him say that, Dongjin quickly invited him to eat with them. Of course, this shameless guy didn't refuse. He ate very naturally and like a tiger, and Min started to find him an eyesore. He then said he wouldn't pick on them for sitting here chatting, but he wouldn't let it slide if the results of tomorrow's weapons training weren't good, regardless of whether they were new. Dongjin quickly said he had already explained the weapons training to the new recruit. He was still talking when Kim Gwang-shik interrupted, even scolding Dongjin with a few more words. And that's when Kim Gwang-shik thoroughly got on Min's nerves. "I'm not putting up with this anymore. So little bro, please take some dark energy and vomit up what you just swallowed, before it even had time to digest. Even if it's free, you can't just freeload like that," the ancient said. So probably. While he was boasting enthusiastically, an earthquake-like tremor ran through, making Kim Gwang-shik suddenly shut down his loudspeaker. He quickly stood up, grabbed various snacks, looked them over to check the expiration dates. Then his face darkened, and he clutched his stomach and left. Even if it's a low-level skill in some cases, it can still make creatures with chronic, annoying diseases suffer the consequences. The two returned to their conversation about the weapons training. It's simply using a KX-2 rifle with a warhead stronger than an ICM round with heavy recoil and a sound like a cannon. But that didn't surprise or worry Min, because it couldn't even hold a candle to the long-range weapons in Isgard after 49 days of trying. The power of that handgun must be on par with an elephant's. One stomp and you're flat. Wow, tomorrow is going to be something to look forward to. Looking at the dog target shot to smithereens was enough to see the terrifying skill of the shooter. But that one missed shot also made Min feel that it was too bad. However, around here hitting 19 shots was already considered a strange phenomenon. Even the red-haired guy from yesterday only held the record of 14 shots. The others watching from above couldn't help but exclaim, "So tough, so monstrous." The scarred sergeant who picked him up the other day also came out to praise him directly, even placing special faith in him for this afternoon's special weapons training. Red hair and brown hair started to gossip again, but were immediately reprimanded by the scarred sergeant. Min was still clueless about what this special weapons training was. This was because Dongjin didn't anticipate Min's level of excellence and forgot to explain. Basically, a team of 2 would enter the training facility together and eliminate monsters on the way to the finish line. They needed to pay attention to the civilian target signs that appeared suddenly and were not to be shot. Hearing about live monsters, Min seemed extremely excited. During lunch, Dongjin excitedly expressed his admiration for Min's achievement of hitting 19 shots, an unprecedented feat for Min in the Hunter Corps. Speaking of good shooting technique, there was another person in this corps, Lee Sung-ho, who averaged 17 hits on target. So now you've taken the #1 spot, right? But anyway, Dongjin had great faith that Min would do well in the special weapons training. Kim Min-jun then asked him why he wasn't participating with him since a team was supposed to have 2 people. But not everyone could participate, and furthermore, the 2 team members would be decided by the executive director. According to the news, it was done through a ladder lottery to create random pairings also known as ghost leg. Very quickly, it was time for the special weapons training. The scarred sergeant was the instructor for this training session. Unexpectedly, Kim Gwangshik was his partner for this training. Before the battle even started, he was already being loud. "Oh ho, teamed up with a new recruit. I guess it's not a balanced match. After all, a sergeant and a private are 2 different worlds. After all, a sergeant and a private are 2 different worlds. But it's fine. His mouth is right next to his ears. Let him boast all he wants. Losing later will be even more embarrassing and haunting." He even used his disgustingly contorted face to threaten Min. "Make sure to finish it in 3 minutes. If not, you'll regret it." Faced with his very provocative attitude, Min remained emotionless and silent, silently holding a grudge. After all, he's just a loser. Nothing more, nothing less. What's the big deal? Before the 2 of them officially faced off, another team would go first. After the command was given, the battle between the 2 sergeants began. The special weapons training began after a group of 2 was dropped into a ground facility from 2 separate directions. In other words, this was a tactical training exercise to clear monsters while protecting civilian targets within a limited area. However, in reality, it had turned into a competition within the army. The goal was to complete the challenge as quickly and cleanly as possible. Then press the completion button at the finish line before your opponent. Those outside could watch the progress of the competing teams on a live diagram on a large screen. There were even markers for monsters of different sizes on the screen. The bigger the marker, the more dangerous the monster. There were 2 monsters in each lane. The monster classification was also random, so you wouldn't know anything until you entered. The 2 who just entered only needed 2 minutes and 24 seconds to complete the challenge. 3 monsters appeared this time, an ogre, a rat, and a desert worm, and the winner would be treated to a meal at the PX. This bet existed because they had bet with each other. Kim Gwangshik recognized this petty game with just a glance. Hearing that, an idea immediately lit up in Min's mind. He said, "Why don't we make a bet?" Min decisively proposed a bet between them. The loser would do whatever the winner requested like a man. Of course, Kim Gwangshik wouldn't refuse a bet with more to gain than to lose like this. He laughed and said if he won, Kim Min-jun would have to give him 3 months' salary. Min didn't expect him to be so petty, so there was nothing to hesitate about. He agreed instantly. The kid made his decision so fast that Dongjin couldn't stop him in time. Very quickly, they entered the preparation area. As soon as he arrived, Kim Min-jun felt that familiar, cheap kind of provocation. He knew it wasn't good to stand out too much, but he wasn't mature enough to sit still when someone actively sought trouble. The battle started very quickly. The people watching outside were also extremely excited as they followed the match, because they also knew about the bet between the two competitors. None of them believed that Kim Min-jun would win. At this moment, the ground suddenly shook. People thought it was an earthquake, but no. A larger monster was approaching a smaller monster. Unfortunately, the mutation occurred in Kim Min-jun's lane. He also felt the tremors very close to him. The giant one-eyed, two-horned monster had devoured the rat in the first room. Although this was the first time he had seen this kind of action, Min was only thinking about finishing quickly to go back and eat fried chicken. When the monster saw him, it quickly threw away its half-eaten delicacy and charged at him. Min had to shoot this monster, but he couldn't hit the civilian targets. He started to get annoyed because the monster was too disruptive, so he used dark magic to send one of its arms flying. The monster was distracted by its severed arm, but with that opportunity, Min intended to shoot it down. But he had barely had the thought when its arm grew back. And the creature seemed even more aggressive than before. Meanwhile, the soldiers outside were also stunned by this situation. Even the scarred instructor was shocked to see this case. A cyclops is a gluttonous demon. Once it uses its energy, its regeneration and attack power increase sharply until its digestion process is complete. But there's something really weird here. It won't attack unless its life is in danger. Besides, it escaped from captivity and became enraged after eating another monster. What provoked it? It's this main character right here. Look at that face, all ready for a good fight. An enraged monster directly ignited Kim Min-jun's ultimate fighting excitement. He nimbly dodged its extremely fierce attacks, while not forgetting to let his sassy mouth run with an exclamation, "Oh my, what an energetic bastard." Although he had an easier way to defeat it, this was weapons training after all, so he had to use a gun. After a barrage of fierce shots, the monster was temporarily blinded. The recovery process for its eyes was slower than for its limbs, and this was the chance to finish off the monster cleanly. Of course, how could Min pass up an opportunity he created himself? But surprisingly, the monster could still attack him, even though it couldn't see anything. Even more astonishing was that it could aim precisely where he stood, while he was still pondering the reason it slashed down brutally. Luckily, he dodged in time, or his head would have been gone. Next, it used its remaining arm, intending to crush Min flat. But there was no way it would be that easy. Min casually blocked the blow with just one hand, still immersed in his analysis. "You're reacting to my dark energy." His eyes flashed and his body was enveloped by eerie purple waves of energy. Meanwhile, the fully armed scarred sergeant entered Kim Min-jun's training tunnel. He desperately hoped that Min could hold on until he arrived to help. At the same time, in the other tunnel, Kim Guangshik was excitedly running like the wind, clocking in at around 2 minutes and 30 seconds. He was sure this was an achievement a private like Min could never match, and he had already started thinking about how to spend Min's 3-month salary. Just as a beautiful vision appeared before his eyes of a vacation with blue seas, white sands, and golden sun. Why the hell did he see that loser standing there staring at the red button? Kim Min-jun was looking at the button. Seeing him, he gave a sarcastic smile and didn't hesitate to press the button right in front of him. This was the outcome Kim Min-jun wanted. An expression of disbelief was also present on Kim Min-ji's face. The scarred sergeant was also extremely curious as to how he could have defeated such a fearsome monster. Kim Min-jun and Kim Guangshik returned to the observation room together, but each in a different state of mind. The whole room cheerfully applauded Kim Min-jun's 2-minute achievement despite Kim Guangshik's sullen face. At that moment, Dongjin was the only one who worriedly asked about him while the rest were just celebrating the victory. While Kim Min-jun was mingling with the group, Kim Guangshik gritted his teeth and left. A soldier brought up the bet between the two and asked about the condition of Kim Min-jun's victory. As soon as he finished, Kim Guangshik returned, hit him, and demanded to cancel the bet. This guy was truly devious. He loudly claimed the bet wasn't fair because he fought 2 monsters while Min only fought 1. In a situation of being pressured by a superior, Lee Dongjin couldn't immediately side with a new recruit like Min. Although fighting that monster was quite a surprise, he wasn't too comfortable defeating it with his fists, so he intended to just forget about the bet. But this guy was annoying from every angle, so there was no way to have peace. Just as the group was being noisy, a voice spoke up. "Aren't you ashamed?" The new recruit took a higher risk. Hearing that Kim Guangshik wanted to see who the bastard who just uttered that sentence was, but the person continued to speak fluently. And this righteous character was none other than Lee Sung-ho. The conflict immediately shifted to these two. After 749 rounds of verbal combat, Lee Sung-ho delivered the final blow. Having a higher rank is great. Sergeant Guangshik full damage critical combo couldn't argue back a single word. Seeing that forehead as red as a gak fruit was also very satisfying. Although furious, Kim Guangshik of course didn't dare to talk back to Lee Sung-ho. Lee Sung-ho was a representative of the challenger tier in this hunter corps. He was once promoted 2 ranks for achieving the highest rank in the advanced exam. However, since then, the special exception was no longer in effect. The leadership had eliminated it because a sergeant who got promoted later caused an incident in a dungeon. Lee Sung-ho was one of the last cases. Even so, is there no other way to get an exception? There were also exceptional cases like rescuing civilians in an emergency or achieving outstanding results in a monster hunt. But it's better not to expect it. Even though he was desperate for a promotion, he didn't wish for civilians to get hurt. But anyway, it's too peaceful here. I want to get promoted right now. Oh God, I wish a gate would appear right now. As soon as he finished the sentence, it seemed a God-sent opportunity had arrived. The command radio from the control center issued an emergency alert. A significant number of intermediate-level bats had appeared in the oil storage area. Kim Min-jun also didn't expect his luck to be so good that his wish was granted. An intermediate-level bat is a type of bat monster the size of a child living in caves. A single one isn't a major threat, but they are particularly agile and moreover can spit fireballs. So their appearance at the oil reserve was an emergency as the entire military camp could be blown up. At this moment, looking at the swarm of bats buzzing like flies overhead, the 2 guards didn't know what to do. The long-haired young man was getting very antsy and was about to open fire, but the short-haired young man stopped him because shooting was forbidden here. But they couldn't just stand and watch like that either. Thinking of the scene of the bats igniting the oil before help arrived, the 2 young men were scared stiff but could only feel helpless. Just as the 2 were scratching their heads in frustration, Kim Min-jun appeared and said he would draw their attention. The 2 guards, seeing he was a recruit and unarmed, showed a lack of trust. Oh my God, who has time to bring equipment when these precious guests who can help with my promotion are waiting like this? Thinking about the wonderful things he would get after this battle, Min was extremely excited. He immediately charged into the battle by activating his dark energy source to make the bats react. It's not outside of my expectations. In that case, all of you are mine. At this time, the rescue team was also rushing over. But what was this before their eyes? At this time, Lee Sung-ho, with large and small boxes, also came over to remind them why they were just standing there frozen. But right now, Kim Min-jun was clearing the path barehanded with incredible vigor. Seeing this, Lee Sung-ho shouted loudly, "Hey, you bastards! A private is drawing their attention, and you guys are just standing there watching." Kim Min-jun tore a bat in half with his hands as if tearing chicken meat. It's a bit too manual, so it's a bit time-consuming. Isn't there anything more useful? Just then, Lee Sung-ho ran over with an electric baton wanting to stop his reckless actions. But Min had no intention of listening. Anyone who tries to take credit from me has to get lost. Hey, but wait, that baton can stay. So please excuse me, Mr. Lee, if you get a little stomach ache. And so Kim Min-jun openly and honestly begged for the electric baton. To him, this thing was no different from an electric fly swatter. Wonderful. Right after Min's calculated smile, the swarm of bats was cleared at a godlike speed. A bat was about to spit a fireball. Lee Sung-ho immediately ordered a soldier to shoot it down. But before anyone could act, Kim Min-jun had already flown behind it and struck it down with his baton just as the fire was emerging from its mouth. How the hell did he get up there? Who knows? More importantly, how high did he just jump? The protective shield was activated to protect the oil reserve. The bodies of the bats were being cleaned up by other soldiers. There were so many that they didn't know when they would finish collecting them. Only at this point did the mission's commanding officer, Captain Song Junshik, appear, gave a few perfunctory words of praise, and then proceeded to ask about the situation. I don't understand where he was while others were fighting their hearts out. Lee Sung-ho was truly furious with this boss's work attitude. He kept thinking, kept frowning. Song Junshik said he would report his merits to the battalion commander. It wasn't me, Lee Sung-ho said decisively. Song Junshik was quite surprised. Lee Sung-ho still insisted that he was not the one who killed the 30 bats. Song Junshik was quite harsh because he couldn't think of anyone else with that ability besides him. Hello. I came to return this electric baton to you. Sir, this thing is very expensive. The kid got too excited and used it more like he was breaking it. snapping the baton. Nothing much. The next day, Kim Min-jun was called into a room by Lee Sung-ho for an interrogation with his 1001 why questions. Min calmly answered them all, yet the man concluded that his achievement yesterday was just luck. Suddenly, Min found this guy quite annoying too. Lee Seung-ho suddenly brought up the special nature of the Hunter Corps. Not every awakened person gets to enlist. I know that. But why bring this up now? He emphasized again that in the Hunter Corps, from private to division commander, everyone was an awakened person. Damn it, this is too terrifying. Although not all members fight, especially the officers, all of them are awakened. And Hunter soldiers are not promoted based on time in service, but on actual skill and achievements. Hearing these words from Lee, Sung-ho Min's face grew longer than a pump. Being called here early in the morning just to be lectured was already tiring, but the surprise had to be at the end of the game. Today, their Hunter Corps had the honor of welcoming a historical figure. The hunter who had hunted the most monsters in the history of the 104th Division, for a visit. It was this man with a bushy beard and mustache. Leading the welcoming party was the captain of the 2nd Company, Commander Lee Junbyum. Right behind him were 4 prominent figures: 2nd Company Operations Officer Captain Song Jun-shik, 2nd Company 2nd Platoon Leader Captain Seo Jon-woon, 2nd Company 2nd Platoon 2nd Lieutenant Kim Cheolmin, and 2nd Company 2nd Platoon 2nd Squad Leader Master Sergeant Lee Sewung-ho. As soon as he arrived, he immediately shook Lee Sung-ho's hand, praising him for his calm handling of the scene. Lee Sung-ho stood straight, loudly, and seriously saying, "Thank you, Commander." Looking at his murderous gaze, Kim Min-jun wondered what the standard was for achieving 2 stars in the Hunter Corps. Very quickly, it was Kim Min-jun's turn to be greeted with a handshake. He realized the man was using considerable strength. Using a lot of strength is fine, but why are you patting my back so hard while talking, old man? I'm gonna throw up. The whole team entered the meeting room. The Hunter Nim immediately asked if they had pinpointed the location where the dungeon gate had appeared. It's on a hill northeast of the barracks, 12 kilometers away. The Corps is currently securing the perimeter and investigating the gate's rank. Whatever he asked, everyone practically answered with all their might. A moment later, he reminded Min Kim, "Min-jun, you did a brave thing yesterday. Your initial reaction was swift, but you must also think of yourself and bring your equipment with you." But anyway, he still praised him for his swift reaction. If the oil tank had exploded, the entire army would have been wiped out. Therefore, the gift the division commander had for him was an on-the-spot promotion. Additionally, he also received a 3-day, 2-night vacation. This wonderful reward made Min unable to contain his emotions, his eyes sparkling and his mouth grinning from ear to ear. In the hallway, Kim Min-jun was praised again by the commander. He then asked him since he had just enlisted and was already allowed to go home where he planned to go. Thinking about this, the smile on Min's lips gradually twisted. The young man didn't hesitate and headed straight for the internet cafe. He wanted to have a fiery 3-day, 2-night vacation here. Just as he reached the door, he heard 2 men drinking on the sidewalk, talking about some guy not being allowed by the soldiers to enter a cave to pick mushrooms. The other guy then said someone named Chang Xian had already gone in there. Moreover, there's poisonous gas on the mountain. I'm afraid that guy will suffer the same fate if he goes in. The guy in the green hat adamantly refused to give up, thinking just wearing a gas mask would be enough. At this moment, Kim Min-jun spoke up, interrupting to ask them where that place was. Of course, someone like him couldn't possibly miss this monster hunt outside of his break time. Seeing the private first-class insignia on him, the 2 men were left speechless. Finally, they told him not to tell anyone about them sending Buddha to the west and then left. Just standing at the foot of the mountain, he could already feel the familiar scent of dark energy. It was truly worth skipping the internet cafe to come here. Upon reaching the top, he saw that everyone was using gas masks to guard the entrance. As a PFC, I shouldn't stand out too much. So if you 2 don't mind having a bit of diarrhea, that'll give me a chance to slip inside and check the situation. The 2 guards quickly made a call to request a shift change. Taking that opportunity, Min slipped inside. Fumbling through the cave, he saw no trace of monsters, but felt an incredibly dense, magical energy. But that's not bad either. I can charge my batteries while I'm at it. Unexpectedly, he also upgraded the power of his rot skill and unlocked a new skill, Nightwalker. It must be said this was truly beyond wonderful. The rot skill had reached D-rank. Nightwalker was an E-rank skill. Nightwalker meant summoning a beast in the form of a shadow with special skills in hiding and assassinating targets. Quite useful. Maintaining the summon requires feeding it an equivalent amount of magic power each cycle. But anyway, this guy is worth the price. Probably because the price he paid for it was a bit low. This pitch-black ghost was tiny. Looking at it, Min didn't think this was something he created, but reality is always harsh. Just a tiny bit of sunlight shining on it made the little thing look like it was about to melt. No matter how you looked at it, it didn't seem like a summoned beast that could hide in the shadows. 3 days and 2 nights passed as quickly as the wind. In a flash, Kim Min-joon had returned to the Corps and was warmly welcomed by his roommates. Kim Min-joon scanned the room, then pulled out a paper bag and handed it to Dongjin. Min bought him a bottle of lotion. Dongjin was extremely touched to receive this gift from Min. But just as the two were talking, Kim Gwangshik appeared. Simply because he also had something he wanted Min to buy for him, a women's magazine called Maxim. Min did buy that, but it was packets of Maxim brand sugar. After a while, the conversation turned to the list of candidates for the promotion exam, which included Kim Min-joon's name, even though those with less than a year of service couldn't register themselves. The red-haired guy asked excitedly, "Did the division commander register for you?" Even so, the timing doesn't match. Hearing that the others exchanged meaningful glances. Amidst everyone's buzzing discussion, Kim Min-joon talked about the proposal the training battalion commander had made to him earlier. After hearing his story, the whole squad froze solid. Red hair and brown hair marveled together, unable to believe someone could be that crazy. While the squad was buzzing, Kim Gwangshik was quietly mixing the packet of sugar water Min had bought for him. Then they also quickly left. Before leaving, they left a piece of information called main weapon training. Is it any different from a rifle? The next morning, everyone started a theory class about the promotion exam taking place tomorrow. The Hunter promotion exam was divided into 2 main types conducted in the order of a written test and a practical test. The written test could be passed easily, with just basic knowledge, easier than the written driver's license test. But the most important part was still the practical test. In the practical test, they would be tested on main weapon proficiency and a status check their ability to respond to monsters. Kim Min-joon wondered what kind of reward he would get for a perfect score on the practical test. Maybe I should try to take it seriously. Very quickly, the main weapon training practical exam began. Privates and privates first class could only use swords. The senior soldiers held their own weapons and walked in the distance for individual practice. Privates and privates first class were trained in basic swordsmanship from the Hunter Corps' combat doctrine, and then they were to adapt it to themselves, not just mechanically imitate the doctrine. The instructor would demonstrate for them to follow his sword. Movements were extremely decisive and agile. Now Min understood why it was main weapon training. Because catching monsters with just a rifle was a ridiculously foolish act. When it was Min's turn to practice his swordsmanship, he used the techniques he had learned in Isgard. This is still better, but it seems to depend on the user. As soon as he finished, the instructor asked everyone to stop and invited Kim Min-joon to step forward. He wanted everyone to observe how Kim Min-joon did it. He also didn't hesitate to display his skills, leaving the whole team speechless. But suddenly becoming a training assistant is also tiring. Even resting wasn't peaceful. The instructor came over and said the training officer was very pleased with him. So he gave him a chocolate bar. As soon as this person left, another came. Dongjin came over again to ask him to demonstrate the technique for him. He's not very confident in his swordsmanship. Sigh, I can't ignore this friend. So Min ate his snack while watching Dongjin practice. His movements clearly showed he had trained very hard. This was indeed the swordsmanship of the Hunter Corps. The problem wasn't in the movements, but because he lacked confidence. And I am an expert at fixing that. However, now is not the time. When the time comes, I'll help you become a top hunter. Saturday, the day of the promotion survey. It's time to become a Sergeant Kim Min-joon. Today, Lieutenant Kim Cheol-min will be your guide. First, each person will report their rank number. Next, we will proceed to the 105th Division Gapyeong. On the way, Kim Min-joon noticed 2 soldiers discussing how Squad 4 was also participating in today's promotion survey. The other guy also didn't expect to be able to see girls today. It's 1,000% accurate information, so you might as well make a plan to hit on them. For Min, women were just fleeting things after all. That damn saintess was too haunting. The vehicle quickly brought the soldiers to the 105th Division. In the exam room, everyone silently received their results. Unbelievably, on this written test that was easier than eating cake, there was still one person who managed to fail. What talent. And of course, this guy was so embarrassed, there was nothing left to say. Except for him, the others would move to the practical exam room right away. Even after leaving the exam room, he was still being laughed at by the other soldiers. As the group passed, Sun Yun-seo was still watching Kim Min-jun's back. In the first practical test, Lieutenant Lee Cheol-ju was in charge of supervision. Before starting the test, he gave a very persuasive presentation, so much so that no one there felt anything but sleepy. Finally, in this year's promotion test, there are candidates competing based on a special exception. They are 104th Division Private First Class Kim Min-jun and Private Sun Yun-seo. After this statement, everyone's eyes turned towards Sun Yun-seo. A rose with thorns, but loved by many guys. Kim Min-jun was also quite surprised that besides him, there was another exception. The other soldiers competing had started to feel anxious. What kind of division is this full of monsters? Next, they started looking for the person who had been promoted to Private First Class. Sun Yun-seo had also noticed Min. It was a coincidence that their eyes met, but neither wanted to stare at the other for long. The practical test included checking strength, flexibility, and stamina stats, starting with the strength test. Nothing complicated, just push back the examiner in front of everyone. It was this pineapple-headed gentleman as big as an ox. Kim Min-jun remembered the time he shattered that boulder with one punch and couldn't help but wonder why every test was like this. It's so ridiculously absurd. The time for each person was a maximum of 1 minute. The score would be evaluated on the Hood-Rose scale, and the highest score would get a 10-meter movement bonus. One by one, they were called up to take the test. The first one was Private Kim Jin-yok from the 103rd Division. This guy was muscular with a rugged face, but unfortunately, no matter what he did, he couldn't budge the pineapple-headed teacher even a little. Completely hopeless at this point. The proctor reminded them that if anyone's score was below 40, they would be automatically eliminated from this exam. The audience started sweating bullets. The next candidates failed one after another from female to male. The supervising teacher started to get annoyed. When it was Sun Yun-seo's turn, she pushed the teacher 5 meters away to the astonishment of everyone present, including the one who was pushed. A young man shouted, praising her beauty. Someone recognized her as the daughter of the division commander. But no matter what, they were all infatuated with this girl. Sun Yun-seo, however, didn't pay any attention, glanced towards Min, and then decisively walked away quickly. Kim Min-jun had no thoughts other than realizing that she was also the one who got an exception. Right after that, it was Kim Min-jun's turn to take the test. Standing in front of the teacher, he thought, repeating what I did with the bloodstone probably won't work. But if I can send this person flying more than 10 meters, there should be a bonus score. So, sir, please be prepared to fly a bit far. The pineapple-headed teacher gritted his teeth, knelt down and pressed his hands to the floor just to stop himself from flying further. Just a gentle push had added an extra 2 or 3 meters of floor space, plus dug a hole in the floor. This terrifying achievement made both instructors sweat bullets. No doubt about it, a clean 100 points. And yet Min was still regretful. So there's no bonus score. Min's achievement was high, but that didn't mean everyone's was. The extremely harsh elimination process continued as usual. Because of its harshness, someone even started crying. The strength test finally ended, and those who passed would immediately proceed to the speed test. The soldiers on duty quickly brought out and set up a net, and also installed a large-caliber machine gun. Everyone guessed this was the bullet-dodging test. The instructor chuckled and said these were just rubber bullets. But getting hit would still hurt, so it was best to try and dodge all of them. This seems new. The maximum standard for the speed test was 1 minute. You just had to stay within the area to the left and right of the net for 1 minute. Additionally, you could also be recognized for your dodging ability through this. The elimination standard was 30 seconds. If you go outside the net before 30 seconds or are seriously injured, you will be eliminated from the promotion exam. The competition began. Kim Min-jun was again visited by someone, none other than Dongjin. He also thought Min had already been eliminated from the stats test. Like hell I was. Actually, he said that because all the privates first class here had failed before, and he meant to remind him of the danger of rubber bullets. As soon as he finished, a comrade was shot in the head and blood splattered everywhere. This person was immediately eliminated and escorted to the infirmary by another. Unexpectedly, the passing rate for the promotion exam was this low, but compared to fighting monsters, this level of difficulty was nothing. The next hunters were eliminated one after another, making the instructor unable to contain his anger and scold them for their low abilities. After this lecture, the next person to take the test was Sun Yun-seo. She carefully warmed up. Her bullet-dodging movements were incredibly fast and flexible, using her whole body to evade. This ability made even the men stare wide-eyed, and the instructor was very satisfied. When the time was up, Sun Yun-seo achieved a perfect score quite effortlessly. As she passed Kim Min-jun, she gave him a sharp, direct look. Kim Min-jun was bewildered, not understanding what the hell was going on, but the people around them thought the two were dating. What the hell? When it was Kim Min-jun's turn, Sun Yun-seo was still staring intently without looking away for a second. He stepped into the test area with a 90% clueless attitude, but the remaining 10% still dodged bullets as lightly as a feather. Sun Yun-seo stared in amazement, then saw Kim Min-jun casually strolling with both hands in his pockets. I'll show you guys what a real difference in skill looks like. Everyone present at the scene stared wide-eyed. Without even using his whole body, Min still moved gracefully like a bird, walking casually amidst a storm of rubber bullets. Not even a single hair was harmed. Not only that, but he also struck a few poses to tease Sun Yun-seo. Even the instructor was speechless. He forgot to stop the timer, letting the time run over by more than 10 seconds before ordering a ceasefire. In this test, he achieved a perfect speed score. Nothing surprising about it at all. Finally, those who passed the speed test were brought to the entrance of a dungeon for the stamina test. The time was 40 minutes, a sequential run. You just needed the examiner to stamp the proctor's seal on your hand and return. The only problem was the distance to the checkpoint. They didn't know how far they had to run. This information wasn't provided by the commander. Since it had just started, everyone was cautious and adjusting their speed. But running like turtles like this made Min extremely frustrated. It's fine to go off on my own. While he was lost in thought, Sun Yun-seo sped past, brushing by Kim Min-jun, and even looking back at him as if in defiance. Bring it on. If you touch me, I'll touch back. When I get mad, don't ask who my daddy is. You want to compete. That's fine. Too bad, sweetie. You picked the wrong opponent to challenge. Kim Min-jun frowned and started to speed up. Soon, he had caught up with Sun Yun-seo. Nothing special, huh? Kim Min-jun looked at her and smirked. Then he casually sped past with a smug grin. I have to try hard just like you. Watching his back disappear into the distance, Sun Yun-seo remembered the days when she first enlisted and was welcomed by her female comrades. However, behind their enthusiastic exterior, there was still some discrimination because of her status as a general's daughter. Everywhere she went, people would point and gossip, saying she was arrogant because she was a general's daughter. Sun Yun-seo had always tried to ignore those rumors. Then Kim Min-jun appeared. Since then, no matter what achievement she made, right behind it was another more outstanding achievement by Kim Min-jun. Everywhere she went, she heard her female comrades talking about him. She heard it so much that even when she went to sleep, the stories wouldn't end. Sun Yun-seo remembered her father's appearance when she was young. He patted her head and then left, but never returned. Since then, Sun Yun-seo had resolved to make herself stronger and stronger, just like her father. One day when she went to the company commander's office, he asked her where she wanted to go. If it was General Sun's 107th Division, but instead Sun Yun-seo asked where Kim Min-jun was going. Remembering those things, Sun Yun-seo realized it wasn't really because she wanted to be here, but because of her childish competitiveness. Getting angry in a moment, she had acted impulsively like a child. Losing a competition might make her feel unhappy. Thinking back on Kim Min-jun's outstanding performances, she blushed because she had been so envious. But she also admitted that she always wanted to become stronger, not to be the number one. She came here to get stronger, without her father's help. If she met someone truly strong, she would try to be acknowledged and learn something, even if it was just one thing. Stop being a child. Sun Yun-seo. She struggled to finally reach the destination, only to find Kim Min-jun already there, chatting away to the point where the instructor had to chase him off. Seeing Sun Yun-seo, he held up the seal, smiled triumphantly, and even said, she did a great job making him wait so long he almost fell asleep. Sun Yun-seo wanted to take back her earlier words. Her face turned red with anger as she demanded the instructor quickly stamp her hand, then she furiously ran back, exiting the dungeon. Kim Min-jun didn't have a single drop of sweat, his hair wasn't even messy. A handsome and radiant figure, Sun Yun-seo, right behind him, was grim-faced and out of breath. The people behind them also emerged half dead and dragging themselves. Kim Min-jun once again took first place with a time of 29 minutes. The instructor was so happy he was grinning from ear to ear. The instructor couldn't help but praise him for being exceptionally outstanding, achieving a perfect score in all categories. All the tests end here. The hunters who pass the test after finishing your meal will gather in front of the training ground in 1 hour. As everyone was getting their coats to leave, Kim Min-jun stuck out his tongue to tease Sun Yun-seo, then cheerfully left, leaving Sun Yun-seo pale-faced. Seeing him laughing and joking with everyone, she realized she was the only one who had been provoked. Anyway, she had lost, so she just smiled in acceptance. There was nothing left to say. 105th Division Base. Practical Test Center, No. 2. A horde of monsters armed with wooden clubs surrounded Dongjin. The young man had incredibly high-level sword skills, but appeared flustered when facing the monsters. He was almost hit in the head by a monster's club, but luckily, his quick reflexes allowed him to block the blow in time and kick it away. Just as that was over, another one jumped in to attack from behind. Dongjin managed to swing his sword in time, slashing the monster and forcing it back. There were still 2 more monsters. Seeing Dongjin's expression, Min fell into deep thought. This was the second part of the practical test, also known as the Special Weapon Proficiency Test. This is actually simpler than I thought. It was simply about demonstrating the skills learned at the Hunter Corps for the examiners. And that concluded the test. Strength and agility in the movements didn't matter. It was simply about following the sequence to pass. And obviously Min got a perfect score. Most candidates chose swordsmanship for the test. And among them, Private First Class Lee Dongjin received a very high score. But now look at him. Does he look any different from a tadpole? In the final part of the test, also known as the ability to handle situations when facing monsters, privates had to defeat 4 hounds, while privates first class had to defeat 3 goblins with the special weapon they had chosen. A real battle. Finally, Dongjin managed to clear out this annoying mob of goblins. The instructor seemed quite disappointed with his performance in this test. Lee Dongjin was also panting heavily, leaving dejectedly. From Min's perspective, Lee Dongjin had too many opportunities to slash the goblins, but each time he hesitated probably because he didn't believe in his own strength. Right after Lee Dongjin, it was Kim Min-jun's turn. Min thought to himself, he should watch me and learn because today no one can stop me from becoming a sergeant, and I will show you just how detrimental that habit of yours is. To everyone's bewilderment, Min heroically shouldered a baseball bat, studded with a few nails, and marched straight back into the fight. Even the instructor had to doubt this choice, thinking he was making things difficult for himself. 3 goblins, big and small, were released. It was just a simple fight. This is my damn specialty. 3 of them attacked at once. Min was just seen standing there with his hands on his hips. In reality, these things were no different from rabbits, and Min was an eagle. He had just made a move, and it was like an eagle snatching a rabbit. 3 of them were wiped out at once. It only took 4 seconds to finish the test. Everyone there showed an expression of utter disbelief that someone so skilled existed in the 104th Division. Everyone burst with emotion, as if they themselves had won. This glorious halo, Min would like to enjoy it, not complain or lament. Sun Yun-seo truly didn't understand if he was a monster or some kind of deity. It was finally over. The lieutenant couldn't help but praise Kim Min-jun. After all, he was the one who did the best. Even Kim Min-jun was confused by his own promotion speed, almost reporting the wrong rank. Although he was the only one promoted this time, the battalion commander was still as happy as usual after hearing the report, so it was all good. Never before had a private first class passed the practical test with such a terrifying score, so this time it was as if Min had carried the team on his back. Before heading back to the division, Min friendly patted Lee Dongjin on the shoulder. Because this was the last time he would see this kind face of Min's. He was ready for a special training session for Lee Dongjin. Surprisingly, Sun Yun-seo came here. She had been promoted to private first class. She also performed well in the monster extermination test. Promotion is a matter of course, but so what? After waiting and sitting down, he still saw her looking at him. She wanted to apologize for the stat test, but then she saw him press his face against the car window and convey a message with a series of exaggerated expressions. If you provoke me again, you'll be gone with me. Before Sun Yun-seo could react, the car had started moving. Wow, is this guy crazy or what? On the bus, the good brothers started pestering him about his and Sun Yun-seo's story. They were all eagerly anticipating some drama. But the main character just blandly said that he was provoked, so he just dampened her fighting spirit a little. The excited group of people suddenly fell silent. No one believed that her fiery gaze was meant to provoke. And then the whole group turned to criticize him for not being gentle with the hot girl of the 104th Division. Faced with countless public accusations, Min just sullenly declared, She's not my ideal type. Of course, after that statement, no one let him off the hook and criticized him even more fiercely. One person who couldn't take it anymore pointed straight at his face and asked who his ideal type was. Min didn't hesitate to spit out a name Lumi, which made everyone freeze solid. Who's that? Who else but the #1 beauty of League of Legends? Alright, this case is hopeless. Returning to the dormitory, Kim Min-jun's entire room got to enjoy his good fortune. The captain treated them to a feast of fried chicken until they were sick of it. It must be said that this was the first time such a treat was seen here, proving he was in an extremely good mood. So the hero of this trip must eat a lot. So quickly, he already had 3 stripes. The red-haired guy felt that the future of becoming a sergeant was not far off. At this moment, Lee Seung-ho returned with a case of beer in his hand and ordered the second squad to assemble in the lounge immediately. The whole team enthusiastically feasting was called away like this, raising many question marks. Lee Seung-ho brought the promotion reward personally sent by the platoon leader, but he kicked out the unrelated people, so the whole group had to quickly move. The red-haired guy was very unhappy with this kind of attitude from Lee Seung-ho. The night grew late, the moon shone brightly, yet someone was sneaking around, and that person was none other than Min. Seeing no one around, he dared to use his dark energy to summon that little ghost girl to ask her something. After the greeting came the assignment to exploit her labor. This is the nature of capitalism, using surplus value to get rich. Min told it to move secretly from now on, and if it saw anyone with a high rank to follow them. This is a stalker, not a scapegoat anymore. But whatever, as long as it gets the job done, its mission was to follow. Gather information about abnormal phenomena, and then report back to Min, especially in situations where magical energy was suspected. The Night Walker and basic swordsmanship skills were also enhanced. Kim Min-jun looked at the gate and hoped it would be great if there were still a few more inside. Hunter Kim Min-jun, damn it! Can you please not show up anymore? Damn, why did you get here so fast? Who asked you to? As soon as she arrived, a blonde-haired woman rushed straight to him, eagerly asking and checking if he was hurt anywhere. This woman is the squad leader of Squad 4, Platoon 4, Company 4 of the 104th Division, First Lieutenant Ji Ye-yoon. Kim Min-jun reported he was unharmed, but she kept scanning him from top to bottom with her eyes, while her mouth never stopped interrogating him. Kim Min-jun reluctantly said he stayed behind to hold them off so the other soldiers could retreat. Inside, he couldn't stop cursing this party-crashing squad. After checking, Yoon started questioning his reason for being there, and Kim Min-jun calmly dealt with it. Only after a while did she let him go and ordered the cleanup of the monsters before they retreated from the scene together. The assault team and the investigation team are about to arrive to take control. As soon as she left, another group of girls swarmed him with 100,000 why questions. After hearing that the little black ghost held out its hand, Min understood this and immediately fed it. After eating, the little one cheerfully went off to do its mission. But that excited running posture, even thinking with my leg hair, I feel uneasy as hell. If the kid gets caught by someone now, there will surely be chaos. It hadn't been caught, but Min seemed to have been discovered. The person who appeared right behind him was none other than Lee Seung-ho. Min made up an excuse that he was getting some fresh air because he had drunk quite a bit. In reality, a dark mage doesn't know what it's like to be drunk. They're not even affected by poison, let alone a bit of alcohol. Lee Seung-ho congratulated him on his promotion, and specifically reminded him to maintain his form. Then he reminded him not to come in too late, at least, not before the guys in the room had all passed out. Lucky as hell, I need to be more careful next time. A few more times like this, and my weak heart will give out. As for that person, he's a serious soldier, but all in all, not hateful at all. The next day, the division leaders were looking at reports to continue planning to closely monitor Kim Min-jun. Hearing about the 4-second monster-slaying record, the commander received a call full of praise from his superiors and was also overjoyed. Climbing to senior soldier in less than a month, a heaven-defying progress. It might not be as simple as they thought, but the rumors would spread very quickly, and if so, that side would also pay attention to him, namely the Special Hunter Brigade. The battalion commander was thinking that Kim Min-jun could reach that level. Countless monsters had appeared in this place, and Min was a new generation of monster. Meanwhile, Min was surrounded by monsters, with only a blunt stick in his hand, just like during the exam. However, he showed no signs of fear and even smiled with delight, an unusual smile. Back to when Min returned to his room after showering. At this time, the whole group was dead drunk. The only two people still sober were Min and Lee Seung-ho. Lee Seung-ho's body was so chiseled that even Min was mesmerized. Lee Seung-ho then asked if he had ever been to the gym. He could use it freely now that he was a sergeant. After that, he remembered the unit's combat simulator was better and recommended Min try it. Hearing this, he couldn't hold back any longer and had to run to see it immediately. Kim Min-jun excitedly opened the door and went in. He chose orcs as the monsters, and as for the quantity, he pressed the button without knowing when to stop. Only when the machine reported that the maximum number was 30 did he stop. I was planning to go big, but this is a bit of a letdown, isn't it? Next was choosing a weapon. After choosing, it was just time to play. The battle began. The terrain of a desert appeared around Min. Orcs, both big and small, came in droves. Min at this moment was like a tiger released into the jungle. Feeling the impact of the blows was quite okay, so he began to wreak havoc. If any monster managed to escape Min's blunt stick, it was just because it was lucky. Kim Min-jun was very excited by this realistic feeling. It wasn't long before the last monster was smashed. Min was quite regretful because there were only 30. It ended too quickly, and he didn't feel satisfied yet. So he made a comeback by choosing 30 of each type of monster for a total of 120. That's more like it. This is a real monster hunt, and this is what satisfies me. Surrounded by a horde of monsters, he showed no signs of fear. Not only that, but he also had to wait until they were all there to start fighting. As soon as the countdown ended, the monsters immediately charged. They all formed a chaotic formation, as if their lines had broken. Min also began to distort his personality and charge into the battle. It seemed he was in a manic state. No one could be this perverted. Kim Min-jun buried himself in fighting, regardless of the species number or size. Wherever the blunt club swung, a monster fell. Wherever he fought, someone died on the spot. And yet, with just a few basic moves, he had finished off 120 monsters of various levels. Min panted and laughed. "Ah ha ha, this is crazy." "So you know you're crazy too." Min exclaimed that this was the second most fun thing only after playing League of Legends. And yet he even managed to activate a new crude weapon technique skill. How talented. Is this a talented person who should be aided by the gods? Although he didn't really expect to get this skill, not eating a pie that falls from the sky would be truly insane. Too wonderful for a beautiful day. I'll probably have to come here and play every day. Just as he left the room, he ran into Private First Class Lee Dongjin again. Looking at the game result report of Kim Min-jun, he trembled. The two of them just fell silent. After a long while, Lee Dongjin finally stammered, "Is this all single-handedly defeated by Sergeant Kim Min-jun?" "Yeah, that's right, 120 of them. Pretty perverted, right?" Not knowing how to explain an idea suddenly popped into his head. Kim Min-jun put on a serious face and called Lee Dongjin over for a moment. Lee Dongjin thought he was talking about the gym, but no, who would do such a thing? Min gave a twisted smile, saying that was training for him then, without allowing any protest. Directly pushed Lee Dongjin into the simulation room, Lee Dongjin frantically begged, but it was too late. After the two of them went in, the third person to see the statistics board was Kim Gwang-shik. He was also shocked stiff. The next day, snow covered the entire 104th Division. Kim Gwang-shik returned with a gloomy, stiff expression. Kim Gwang-shik asked the people in the room where Kim Min-jun was and was informed that everyone had gone to the warehouse to prepare snow-clearing equipment. As for Min, he had said he would stay in the physical training room until work started. After saying that, the friend turned pale, realizing he had unconsciously used honorifics when talking about Kim Min-jun. But unexpectedly, Kim Gwang-shik didn't get angry. He even asked Jin Cheol-ho to relay a message to Kim Min-jun that the platoon leader was looking for him. He quickly used this excuse to slip away before Kim Gwang-shik could change his mind. Inside, everyone was betting on how long it would take for Kim Min-jun to become a sergeant, asking if Kim Gwang-shik wanted to join them. He looked at the report, then heard his comrades arguing about not being able to become a sergeant in 6 months. Guangxik also silently wrote something and threw it on the bed. The whole group was shocked when the number he wrote down was just 1 month. The long-haired guy felt this pineapple head was even crazier than him. In the gym, Min was putting all his effort into lifting weights to train his muscles. He had been lifting weights for so many days but didn't see any muscle gain. Although his strength stat increased, and his combat effectiveness also increased accordingly, this didn't satisfy him much. Feeling discouraged, he then saw the status window notify him that his combat strength had increased to level 5. Min was so happy his face turned red. At this moment, Yahello had also arrived to tell him the platoon leader was looking for him. In Min's eyes now, there were only skills. He happily put his clothes back on and thanked Yahello. A moment later, Min was at the administration office. The person on duty here greeted him very warmly, and then handed him a file of some sort. This is from the company commander. It was a very perfunctory-looking certificate of commendation, but all his achievements were clearly recorded that, if my achievements are recognized, and I have this many certificates, will I get any special promotion? It was also the first time the administrative soldier had seen someone so crazy. But seeing Min's excited face, he didn't have the heart to be harsh and say it wasn't easy. Min was definitely not giving up. He then proposed to price 10 certificates for 1 promotion. The administrative soldier just laughed awkwardly. This is a certificate of commendation, not a discount coupon, you old coot. A few days later, the platoon had a mission to attack a dungeon. As announced earlier, the dungeon they would attack today was the lair of rat monsters. Before the sentence was even finished, the soldiers were already scared green. Kim Min-jun, Jong Han-young, and Lee Dong-jin were in the same team. In front of them were also Lieutenant Kim Cheol-min and Master Sergeant Lee Seung-ho. This sewer rat dungeon was the habitat of rat monsters. Although not classified as a high-danger dungeon, on average over 200 rat monsters appeared. The narrow space of the cave limited the use of guns. This dungeon was truly a tough challenge. At this moment, Kim Cheol-min was discussing the terrain of this area with Lee Seung-ho. Besides the platoon's movement direction, this space only had 1 entrance. The tactic proposed was to lure the rats to this spot. Due to the stench in the dungeon, the soldiers had to use special gas masks designed for the hunter corps. The circumstances made it difficult for the hunters to display 100% of their abilities. The special bait for rat monsters was ripe bananas. The soldiers' faces turned pale. If those rats only eat this, the smell wouldn't be so bad. While the lieutenant was directing the soldiers to place the bait, he suddenly saw human bones scattered on the ground. Before he could even be terrified, someone announced that the rats were coming. Most of them were approaching through the front entrance. The privates took their positions to guard the rear with the deputy squad leader. Everyone was called to their positions. Whoever catches more gets treated to po-bo. After agreeing to participate, the rats also charged. The soldiers were ordered to hold their positions. Kim Min-jun looked at the rat as if seeing a certificate of commendation hanging on it, extremely eager. Everyone competed to slash the rats, as if playing Fruit Ninja with no difficulty at all. Everyone is pretty good, huh? Still with his blunt mace, Min swung it once and 3 rats went to their graves together. He also noticed the 2 people behind him were formidable opponents. The 2 of them were taking down the rats that broke through the ranks, none other than Sergeant Kim Min-ji and Lieutenant Kim Cheol-min. A whole large area defended by just the 2 of them. Indeed, their ranks weren't easily achieved. Lee Dong-jin was also more decisive in slashing rats now. Yesterday's training seemed to have paid off. When one side called for support, Min immediately volunteered. Hearing that, Kim Guangxik looked towards him, and then swung his sword, cutting a rat in half. Rat monsters appeared in the rear. Some soldiers were sent there to defend, not to focus on attacking. The red-haired guy used dual swords to fight the rats, very happy that their numbers were decreasing. At this moment, Min smelled that familiar scent again. Because he had a gas mask, it was even easier to recognize. He started looking around and saw a crack appearing right under a soldier's feet. "They're coming from underground," he quickly shouted. Sure enough, as soon as he finished with a boom, a column of energy shot up from the ground. The soldiers hastily jumped away to dodge. What appeared was a giant irregular. This pile of bones was its handiwork, no doubt about it. When it turned its mouth towards Guangxik, he was so scared he couldn't move. He trembled, knowing he was in danger, but unable to react. Someone from behind shouted, reminding him to snap out of it and get away from there. Unfortunately, the rat had already swung its long claws. Just as he thought he was done for, with a swish, the rat was struck back by someone who charged in with a sword. Lee Dong-jin grabbed his shoulder, telling him he should have moved. The enraged monster continued to attack. Just as the two thought they were about to be crushed under its giant claws, Kim Min-jun arrived with a shield. Crazy eyes and unusual strength this time, it's also magical energy. He then landed right on its head. After that, he gave Lee Dongjin a thumbs up. But the real battle was next. Kim Min-jun was ordered to fall back to let the sergeants deal with it at the position, but he didn't feel like listening. The rat used its dark energy to make rocks fall from the cave's ceiling, preventing the warriors from getting close. But this was just too convenient. Just in time, I was worried someone would see this. Saying that, Min kicked it. The rat recoiled in pain and used a sound wave to attack. Min quickly used his shield to block it. Next, he charged forward and punched it repeatedly in the face. Just go for the face. After the rat was completely unconscious, he absorbed its dark energy. Magical energy stat increased by 1. It's worth something, I guess. After exiting the dungeon, the privates were cheerfully joking around. A sergeant called his superior to report the situation, and the squad member was the one who subdued this mutant monster. At this moment, Min was sniffing himself and also turned pale at this horrible stench. At this moment, the long-haired guy came over and patted Min's stomach, praising him. From mosquitoes to monsters, Min didn't spare any of them, and thanks to that, they were still here. Kim Min-jun apologized for charging in on his own, but the long-haired guy said it was a breakthrough situation. If not dealt with quickly, the first casualties would have been Guangxik and Dongjin. This time, the commander interrupted their conversation right after finishing his phone call. He asked if Kim Min-jun was really not injured. Receiving his confirmation, he sighed, told him to come see him when he got back to the unit, and then left dejectedly. Over here, the scarred sergeant was also reporting on the injured team members. After that, he went over and patted his comrade on the shoulder. Because of the breakthrough situation, this dungeon raid will end here. After checking their gear, they will prepare to return. Kim Min-jun went to the administration office again. There was nothing to do but report the process of how he defeated the monsters. Min started to wonder what he should write here. I can't just say I swatted that little thing with a shield like a fly. Who would believe that? The sergeant placed a bottle of medicine in front of him, saying his vision was obstructed at the time, but he could vaguely see that Min seemed to have defeated the monster with his fists. Kim Min-jun gave a forced smile, making an excuse that the situation at that time made him act without thinking. He asked again, "So what are your stats really?" Hearing Min read out a series of numbers, all starting with 6, he had a mental breakdown. Even a lieutenant like him only had numbers starting with 4. He leaned back in his chair in despair. Someone like you could get into the hunter officer school. I feel it's such a waste. Whatever, I just graduated high school. It's hard to get into that school anyway. The lieutenant told him again if his goal was a leadership position, he could consider going to university. But hearing him list a bunch of different types of textbooks, Min started to get scared. Indeed, a sentiment not unique to anyone. Min smiled. I don't like studying. Getting promoted through achievements is enough. Although that was the case, if he changed his mind, he would still be willing to help. Then he offered to finish the report for him. Before he left, the lieutenant formally said a word of thanks. In that situation, he had been scared, and it could have led to the worst-case scenario, if not for Kim Min-jun. So this time, the whole team was carried by Min. For Min, it was just something he had to do to get promoted quickly. There was one problem. Corporal Kim Guangxik came with his head all bandaged up to ask for special training with Lee Dongjin. When asked for the reason, he decisively pointed at Lee Dongjin, because he has improved his strength a lot, and I want that too. Kim Min-jun, of course, didn't agree easily. He gave a serious look as a hint. Luckily, this pineapple head was quick on the uptake, immediately bowing his head to thank Lee Dongjin and begging very sincerely, although Lee Dongjin helped him beg Kim Min-jun. Min still wasn't satisfied. He had one condition. From now on, for 24 hours, if you walk around imitating a pigeon, I'll consider it once. Kim Guangxik's face turned red with anger, but his mouth twisted to make cooing sounds, which also stunned and stammered Lee Dongjin while Min laughed like a witch. There's another one. Meanwhile, in Isgard, a man pushed a cart covered with a very mysterious cloth. When asked why, the saintess gave a demonic smile, saying this was a gift for Kim Min-jun for daring to leave on his own. But no matter what she did, it still wasn't enough for her. This bitch isn't a saintess, she's a witch. She kidnapped him, but acts as if she gave birth to him. Meanwhile, the whole group of people was being herded to dig dirt. The red-haired guy cried out miserably. After digging dirt, it was time to carry stones. They were the army's slaves. Kim Guangxik reminded them that this term was only for them to use with each other. As for this stone, it was called an ironstone because they didn't know if it was iron or stone. That's why it was used to build fortifications. While everyone struggled to carry one stone each, Kim Min-jun carried two on his shoulders, making Kim Gwang-shik suddenly curious if they were weak or if the stones were light. But that wasn't the end of it because the next trip he carried 4 stones at once. After moving the stones, everyone got a 10-minute break. The scarred sergeant then went to ask the platoon leader about the empty dungeon that appeared in the 104th Division. Hearing the 3 words empty dungeon, all the soldiers' faces turned as green as banana leaves. They really didn't want to go into a dungeon anymore. The red-haired and brown-haired guys were so miserable they were hugging Sergeant Minji's legs and crying. Meanwhile, Kim Min-jun listened with a confused attitude. An empty dungeon is a place where the internal size of the dungeon is larger than standard. Although the number and types of monsters inside the dungeon exceed the standard in the case of a dungeon emerging, there are no boss monsters or high-danger monsters. This is a favorable environment for hunters to gain combat experience. So before sending soldiers into real combat, the division-level training will be conducted there. Kim Gwang-shik said these things to Min, but Min asked who he had been talking to all this time. Knowing full well that Min was just being dramatic, he didn't bother to argue. What he had just said was not the training he needed. Seeing those guys cry was also annoying. The platoon leader reminded them, this is division-level training, an opportunity to accumulate a lot of points. Hearing this, Min's will to fight flared up again. Feeling excited, he saw the little black ghost again. His face darkened instantly. Why is it there? He quickly used his foot to cover it. On the other side, the red-haired and brown-haired guys were still crying and whining to Sergeant Minji. After touching the little ghost, he saw its memory fragment, related to a request for aid, because an irregular monster had appeared in Yanggu. At a civilian residence, 2 of the investigators suddenly went mad, and yet the leadership only assigned that dungeon to the regular army to control the area, while the hunters were ordered to retreat, prioritizing the dungeon that appeared in the residential area of Hongqian. Min started to smile like a witch again, thinking about using his vacation pass once. Before the sun had reached its peak, Kim Min-jun was already awake. Looking at the dark circles under his eyes, he probably failed at the wake-up early to succeed trend. He glanced at the family photo on the nearby TV stand, a photo where he wasn't present in the family Min-jun, then remembered his story about requesting leave. That photo was of the platoon leader's family of 4. When Min-jun came to request leave, he smiled so widely his eyes disappeared. I don't know why you transported several times more ironstone than others at the base construction. So you wanted to finish quickly to use your leave day, huh? You're really great. Very good. If I'm praised, I'll say thank you. But the platoon leader's intention wasn't really a compliment, however. He still caringly asked where Min-jun was going on his leave. The young man shyly said he was at the internet cafe last time, and this time he planned to go to the restricted area. The platoon leader had also anticipated this, so he wasn't surprised. He straightforwardly gave the young man the key to his parents' apartment. Now those 2 had moved to another place for work, so it was empty. The platoon leader still stayed there every time he was on leave, so he guaranteed the apartment was clean. Min-jun said he was fine, but the platoon leader didn't think so. He pulled out the pre-written address and gave it to him. If you don't stay, then forget about the leave. The apartment was in Chuncheon City, Gangwon Province, a decent direction on his leave route. Before he left, the platoon leader also told him that if he didn't use it, he should just keep it and enjoy his leave. After Min-jun left, he sat on the chair and sighed again. Seeing his resume on the table, the platoon leader suddenly froze and then decisively turned his head away, out of sight, out of mind. Back to Kim Min-jun. The young man suddenly gave a satisfied smile, looking at someone else's family photo. Then he put on his hood and left. On the way, he remembered the blonde girl's words about not approaching within a kilometer and just controlling the roads to plan the next move. In front of him, a group of guards was already in formation. If I can't go straight, I'll just jump over their heads. Climbing the roof in a few steps, Min-jun got close to the dungeon gate. I'm really looking forward to seeing what kind of kid it is this time. I need to find a way to know which monster escaped, but thinking of the only snitch, that lively little black ghost Tisk, forget it. If it's a dangerous one, I can just jump out Tisk. And just like that, Kim Min-jun entered the dungeon. Inside this place was a gloomy forest as if covered by winter. Many ancient trees without a single leaf, only bare branches like ghosts. And it was so damp it made one exclaim. After walking a bit, Min-jun accidentally saw a broken-bladed sword. A battle had probably taken place here. Hey, there's some demon thing. That thing over there is too exposed, so just jump out. I'm too used to sniffing out monsters with all my senses, so you guys can stop hiding. In the view of a squatting person, the first thing seen was a torn loincloth between the legs, dark purple eyes filled with demonic energy, long fangs protruding from the jaw, preventing the mouth from closing properly. The one coming was a goblin, disappointing as hell. Why isn't it a kobold? But why is this little demon so big? To face this guy, the investigation team must have struggled a lot to survive and return here. This one was fat but could jump high. I wonder if it practiced the 9-yin white bone claw because its swipe was quite something. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough to threaten Minjun. He reacted as fast as lightning, dodging neatly, then threw a shocking punch in an instant. He punched so hard the blue energy was about to light up the sky. But surprise, he couldn't even break this demon's tooth. It even took the opportunity to open its mouth for a love bite. But Minjun spread his legs and kicked it right away, jamming its lower jaw into its upper jaw. If you're going to be a punk, don't ask why you're eating porridge, you hear? If you're going to be a punk, don't ask why you're eating porridge, you hear? The kick just now made the goblin spew out a lot of things, but it surprisingly hadn't diminished its fierce fighting spirit. The green demon charged forward to pounce again, but in the end, facing Minjun, it would just keep missing. By the way, watch your step, sweetie. I added a bit of my rot skill to soften the ground there. And you're stuck in the mud, huh? Then my condolences to you because I'm not waiting for you anymore. I'm coming to punch you. A rain of fists landed straight on its face, but this thing was still pretty tough. The only good thing was that it didn't bite anymore. The next punch was aimed at a weak spot on the goblin's body, but it was blocked by its bent arm. Minjun was stunned for half a second before being scratched by the demon's other hand. Then it lowered its arm again, revealing the opening on its body. But by this time, Minjun had already been sent flying, landing not far away. Looking at his torn shirt, then seeing the broken sword nearby, Minjun picked it up. The guys I've met since I came back are all ant level. You, however, are probably on the level of a rhino beetle. Once he activates his sassy mouth mode, it's hard for anyone to keep up. The goblin opened its mouth wide and hissed a long sound, then swung another 9-yin white bone claw. This time, it also aimed straight for Minjun's handsome troublemaking face. Even if you're like that, a bug is still just a bug. Damn, I'm so pissed off. What are you gonna do now, huh, you punk? Minjun's killing intent rose as he roared in anger. My new shirt. With that, he plunged his sword straight into the opening on the monster's body. It let out a long, uncontrolled shriek and collapsed. Minjun wasn't done yet. He spread his legs again and delivered a split kick more perfect than a textbook, crushing the head of the insolent creature that had ruined his new shirt. Of course, he didn't forget the part about collecting magical energy. It looks pretty good. My magical energy stat increased 3 times in a row, thanks to this amount of magical energy. The dark arrow skill was unlocked, the night movement skill was enhanced, and the basic swordsmanship skill was also formed. Not bad, huh? Look at this stats board full of beautiful numbers. Dark arrow skill, rank E, consumes magical energy to fire an invisible arrow at the target. Basic swordsmanship rank. E, significantly increases proficiency with weapons like swords and blades. Kim Minjun laughed uncontrollably at the long-range attack skill. But why is basic swordsmanship here too? Could it be because of that critical punch I threw earlier? Anyway, it's a pie from the sky. It would be a waste not to eat it. Thinking back, this goblin was already injured before meeting Minjun. I wonder what that flashing thing was earlier. I'll just cut it open and see. Looking at the thing in his hand, Minjun was also stunned with surprise. A sharp, shapeless piece of metal. He couldn't tell if it was an arrowhead or a broken blade fragment. He didn't know if a hunter from the investigation team had stabbed it or not. But looking at it again and again, it seemed familiar, as if he had seen it somewhere before but couldn't remember. At this moment, 3 more goblins had arrived and stood right behind Minjun, just when I wanted to try out a new skill. Wait a minute, let me put this trophy away, and then I'll play with you guys. Come on. The 3 goblins, seeing their comrade over there, gritted their teeth in anger. Minjun over here was also ready. 2 guns in 2 hands, what the hell am I afraid of? Let's try and see how powerful an E-rank skill is. As soon as he finished speaking, 2 streams of black magical energy shot out at the speed of light, with the power of a nuclear missile, finishing off the 2 demons on either side in a single note. Kim Minjun became even more fired up. Although his main task was done, he didn't mind things like conveniently killing a few more monsters. The remaining goblin was so scared its vision blurred. With his signature demonic smile, Kim Min-jun threatened, "Where are your friends, huh?" And then there is no then anymore. When Kim Min-jun left the dungeon, he was more satisfied than ever. The dungeon is cleared. Now it's time to go back and play League of Legends. In a flash, it was time to return to the army. Today, there was another field trip. The whole group was marching on an empty field. Not many people were excited about this trip. Kim Min-jun's expression was unchanged. He had ended his very satisfying leave by collecting a lot of magical energy, a few new skills, and camping at the internet cafe to eat ramen and play games. And when he returned, in a light-hearted mood, the entire platoon was in a state as if there was a funeral. It was all because of the 3 words, empty dungeon. His long-haired friend even hugged him and wailed, "Min-jun, that's an empty dungeon. We're being forced into mobile hunter training next week." The nearby blonde and red-haired guys sat there with pale faces, their souls having left their bodies. This time, the platoon leader was still leading the way. Each squad would start from a random point, move to the assembly point in the center of the dungeon, and have to deal with monsters that charged out in the middle and unexpected situations. There, as soon as he finished speaking, the monsters came. The platoon leader ordered everyone to prepare for battle, having spotted a target on the hill ahead. Before, everyone's spirits were low, but now everyone was in serious mode. Only our main character was smiling as if he had a bountiful harvest. This was what a division-level practical training was like. From the hill, a herd of round balls with sharp jaws rolled down at godlike speed. They were called dark bones. The entire team was ordered to load their weapons and prepare to aim. Kim Min-jun was laughing so hard, his expression contorted, because this incredibly fun training session was exactly as he had predicted. The command to fire rang out, and everyone opened fire simultaneously. These black balls looked tough. The scarred sergeant shouted to remind everyone dark bones have thick skin and extremely high elasticity, so they are difficult to subdue with close-range weapons. We must deal with them before they get close. The whole team was still firing with all their might. But these things rolled fast too. Because they had gotten close, they had to switch to close combat. Only 3 were left, but they were extremely ferocious. If they start latching on and sucking blood, it will be hard to eliminate them on the spot, so be careful to avoid getting bitten. The shape of a ball, but the nature of a leech, huh? But this also means the moment you're bitten is the end. So if many people are eliminated due to injury, won't the platoon's performance plummet to the bottom of society? There's no way that's happening. At this moment, a black ball was charging towards 3 soldiers, eagerly sticking out its long tongue. Kim Min-jun immediately dashed forward to block. As he ran towards it, he shouted for Master Sergeant Lee Sung-ho, and then gave it a heavenly kick, sending the little thing that had just gotten close, flying far away. Specifically, it flew straight up into the sky, a kick that made others look up in awe. If no one was here, it would have been skewered by a dark arrow and dead long ago, not flying around like that. Taking the opportunity, the other soldiers opened fire to finish it off, and so Kim Min-jun just took on the duty of kicking the ball for his teammates to shoot down. If you're a ball, you should accept being kicked. Why try to suck blood? And so the whole herd was wiped out, not a single piece left. After finishing this battle, the platoon leader let everyone rest on the spot for 10 minutes, while also checking their gear to see if anyone was injured. After the check, each squad reported in. After the platoon leader finished speaking, he turned to pat Kim Min-jun on the shoulder. The others continuously gave him a thumbs up. Kim Guangshik and Lee Dongjin's eyes met. Then they quickly turned away. The blonde and red-haired guy's spirits had hit rock bottom. As soon as they got a break, both of them immediately zoned out. The red-haired guy lamented that this training was harder than the last one. Just one battle, and they had already taken several breaks. The blonde guy in a daze spoke unclearly. He had just heard a rumor that this place wasn't an empty dungeon. A boss monster had once been here. That big elephant was punched by this bearded general until it returned to the earth to make a training ground. So there's a rumor that it was captured alive and is being held at the assembly point. This dungeon is probably going to be destroyed too, and the 2 young men were also in tears. At this moment, the scarred sergeant came over, put his arms around their shoulders, and pulled the 2 troublemakers along. Break time is over. Kim Min-jun, hearing this story from a distance, felt that the Hunter Corps' Du Seokyong was quite something. The whole group set off again. The two troublemakers were constantly and noisily screaming for their lives. At this moment, the platoon leader again halted the group. He had seen something. Then suddenly he was extremely alarmed. The whole team also stared wide-eyed in bewilderment. Even Kim Minjun was dazed. The person sitting in the middle of the road wearing the injured person sign was none other than Du Seokyong. But if he's injured, why is he still smiling so brightly? Meanwhile, in another land, an old man with a long white beard and hair was smoking, when a young man in a steel helmet approached. The old man didn't need the other to speak to know he had broken his sword again. Because he was used to this, and also because he had backed that woman which led to this, he didn't hold it against him. But damn it, breaking it this badly is a bit too much. And this chipped part looks familiar, huh? In another development at the central assembly point of the dungeon, the army had set up a series of tents in an area with pre-built concrete fences and barbed wire. Additionally, there was a large truck and a small truck parked there. A closed-door meeting was taking place here among the leaders. One person was scrolling on a tablet while speaking. I told you there have never been this many monsters before. This person was the commander of the 104th Division 3rd Battalion Lieutenant, Colonel Ko Jong-cheol. I mean, there shouldn't be any incidents. The fat, crew-cut-headed old man laughed so hard his eyes disappeared and said, "Mr. Division Commander, it seems you think the average combat ability of the division is declining, huh?" He was the commander of the 100th Division, 1st Battalion, Colonel John Seung-kyun. Of course, the thin, bespectacled man didn't mean that. In fact, Jong-cheol even felt that such pressure wasn't much. At this moment, Colonel Lee Junbyom of the 104th Division, 2nd Battalion, opened the door and entered. His face was as sad as if he had lost his ration book. He returned the greeting while asking if they had seen the division commander. "Well, what?" A terrifyingly loud scream rang out. The fat man casually clasped his hands behind his head, leaned back comfortably, and laughed. "Now you know what kind of person he is. No one can stop him." "No." Even so, why would he suddenly participate in training? Junbyom still couldn't believe his ears. The crew-cut-headed colonel was still gloating over others' misfortune. The bespectacled leader pushed up his glasses like Conan, but didn't solve any murders, simply recounting what the division commander said before he escaped. "There's a soldier I want to observe with my own eyes." At this moment, the division commander, playing the role of a wounded man, was sitting in the middle of the road, smiling like a ghost. He must be playing the role of a mentally traumatized person. Seeing the division commander, the whole squad was stunned. No one said a word. The most shocked person now is the battalion commander. He immediately froze. The scarred sergeant behind called out, but he didn't react at all. The director also told them that someone from the division command would participate, but he didn't say that person was the Hunter Corps' Du Seokyong, aka the division commander. The platoon leader was so scared his expression went out of control. As for the injured person, he was like a tiger. The good thing was, this man's main job was division commander, and his side job was an actor, so he was determined to play his role to the end. Du Seokyong held up his roll card and smiled. "Platoon leader, please take good care of me. Look at that face." That's why being an actor is his side job. Report, Commander. I am Lieutenant Kim Chaelman." Yes, sir." He was so scared by the commander's "I'm about to eat you" begging tone that he almost peed blood. Kim Minjun had two young men carry a stretcher to welcome the injured soldier. Looking up at the towering old man, these two young men weren't sure if they could even lift the stretcher. Luckily, this old man, while acting his part, refused to lose his dignity. He wouldn't lie on the stretcher and even scolded the scarred sergeant for knowing his personality and still playing along. After threatening his subordinate, he dusted off his hands and turned to leave, declaring he would definitely not follow the training program stubbornly, using the excuse of not knowing anything to back out, finally concluding with one sentence, "You don't need to worry about me, just continue your training." This was the first time in his life Minji had encountered such a situation. Even crying wouldn't do anything. Looking at the commander's extremely meaningful hidden smile, Minjun suddenly smiled along his smile was no less demonic. He had realized some truth, so he felt this damn training course was getting more and more interesting. Indeed, it was interesting because hilarious situations kept happening. Afterward, monsters still kept appearing everywhere. The injured person just stood in one place and observed while Kim Minjun was still fighting enthusiastically as usual. The platoon was also provided with a lot of equipment by the division, At the same time, more recreational activities were added to the training, making it more fun for some people, but not all. Reaching this part of the road, everyone was about to start breathing through their asses. Leading the tired squad was Private First Class Jin Cheolho, 2nd Squad, 2nd Platoon, and in front of them now was a giant lizard with a twisted neck joint. Cheolho used all his strength to slash this contemptuous lizard once. Just as its face parallel to the sky was about to be slashed, he also collapsed from exhaustion. At that moment, the lizard suddenly went berserk, lunging down with its long tongue out, about to snatch the miserable soldier when a sword slash went across its throat. The one who acted was none other than Kim Min-jun. His basic swordsmanship had leveled up slightly, increasing his mastery of sword-type weapons. Unexpectedly, this training trip also helped increase his skills. Kim Min-jun acted as a support for his exhausted friend to stand up. Around them, the whole team was still putting all their effort into slashing the twisted neck lizards. Cheolho struggled to say a word of thanks to Kim Min-jun. He didn't reply. Over here, a soldier was struggling to slash the monster in front of him. A sword slash with no visible movement, only a flash of light scared him witless. Kim Min-jun rode on the monster's head and flew wherever he went. His sword swung and slashed everywhere. Even when landing, he still conveniently swung his sword back and beheaded the unlucky lizard. The injured person had observed enough of the spectacular scenes just now. For this drill training course throughout the history of the Hunter Corps, it was rated as the highest intensity training course. Lost in thought, a lizard appeared behind him. This guy was something else. He directly raised his fist, which was enough to send that unstable living creature flying into the sky, never to return. So is he still injured? This ends here. Line up in this order and start resting. Everyone keep up the good work, Kim. Cheolmin loudly commanded his platoon. He did a very good job of giving breaks and sending them off. Kim Min-jun at this moment was giving a thumbs up to his comrades. He had also successfully made an impression on Commander Du Seokyong. At the same time, in the north of the city, girls were putting all their effort into slashing black balls. These balls were really draining their energy. A final ball flew over. The blonde girl was in trouble. Missing the slash really hurts. Sun Yunseo aimed for the right moment and charged, managing to send it straight to hell in time. At this moment, the female team finally breathed a sigh of relief. The blonde happily exclaimed that Sun Yunseo was truly formidable. As soon as she finished speaking, another black ball flew like a motor towards her back. She still hadn't detected the danger and continued to speak. You alone have caught most of them. Just realizing something's wrong now, miss. You're out of ways to run. Her helmet flew into the air. The blonde was pushed and fell to the ground. A mane of blue hair floated in the air. Sun Yunseo once again reacted in time to save her friend. But the ordeal quickly shifted to herself. This dark bone had cornered her at the edge of a cliff. Unfortunately, her foot slipped, and her whole body immediately plunged down. Meanwhile, under the red sunset, Kim Min-jun's team was relaxing refreshingly. Kim Cheolmin and Kim Minji were busy discussing something. The division commander came over and exclaimed, "All the members of the platoon have come this far, without anyone being seriously injured. This platoon leader is quite something, huh? I wonder if he knows." The squad leader was suddenly praised and was a bit confused. Luckily, he was quick to praise his teammates. This time, the commander seriously praised him. "You really have leadership ability, not just a mediocre one." But he couldn't be serious. For a few sentences, smiled and said, "I hope to be taken care of until the end of the training course." Du Seokyong looked back at the scarred sergeant. "Well, here comes the next victim." Kim Minji was immediately asked by the division commander, "Why can't you calm down now when there's still a long way to go? Are you just going to help those kids?" Then the two of them happily joked around, not noticing the two young men behind them looking dumbfounded. The young man with the shaved head wanted to ask the young man with the fortune teller about the training course. The fortune teller refused, but the shaved head asked as usual. He pointed to a hole and asked what it was. The fortune teller replied, "That's it, a hole." At this moment, the whole squad set off. The head was still curious about the hole. The fortune teller was very concerned about his friend's studies. "You don't know about the catacombs. Did you fall asleep during dungeon training? That's a fatal line, my friend." But the fortune teller still didn't know what to say. Although they haven't revealed much about the catacombs, currently, many hypothesize that the catacombs are places that can connect from one dimension to another. So it's essentially an infinite connection from an infinite space that's pretty enlightening. But that's not all. Even in tombs, there are specific boundaries. The end point of that spatial connection. At this point, the brain-dead guy started to die. The connection point was broken at an unexpected point, and that was the catacombs. Luckily, when he got here, he understood human language. He was amazed at the fortune-teller's erudition. By the way, the barber asked, "What would happen if you accidentally fell or jumped into that hole?" The fortune-teller stroked his chin and smiled knowingly, spitting out the two words, "I don't know." He only knew that there was a rumor that he would be transferred to another dimension. This made the head of the cutting room immediately lose his mood. At this moment, the two people saw the army in front, standing still and bustling. What happened when Kim Cheolmin and Kim Minjun went up at the same time? Both were shocked at the same time when they saw Sun Yun-seo lying on the ground unconscious. Although there is no scene of catching a virtual Canadian beauty like in romance movies, but falling down but still alive is already very virtual. Not long after the person who had just collapsed woke up and took a drink of water, Kim Cheolmin was communicating with someone via walkie-talkie, and the division commander was looking like he had stepped on shit. After a while, the battalion commander turned around and informed the 4th Battalion, comforting Sun Yun-seo not to worry and to rest assured. Sun Yun-seo asked him to check if his teammate was okay. They are fine, still have the energy to take care of her situation. The team even planned to pause training to search for her, but they received the notice, so they probably will continue training. Sun Yun-seo felt somewhat relieved. But the real problem was her. "Look at this leg, it's frozen stiff, what should I do?" Kim Minji said seriously that her leg was no longer able to continue training, and for a hunter knowing how to take care of himself was as important as combat training. Kim Cheolmin also said he had contacted the 4th Battalion, so rescuers would come to pick him up soon. "I know you're disappointed, but you can't delay your training because of that." Sun Yun-seo still wanted to say something, but didn't know what to say. She could only sadly bow her head. At this time, the division commander clasped his hands and asked about the real situation of the wounded soldiers. The usually arrogant Sun Yun-seo was scared when she saw the division commander. Her face turned pale and her eyes were white. She started to wonder where I was and who this was. She thought this was just a platoon training session. Why was he here? Kim Cheolmin immediately reported the situation to Du Seokyong, fake wounded. Du Seokyong also felt sorry for this case because the training program was about to end anyway. "Hey girl, what was the situation like then?" "Private First Class. Sun Yun-seo, sir. While fighting the monsters, I fell off a cliff and lost consciousness. Then when I opened my eyes, I was already here. You fell into the boundary of the dungeon, or perhaps it was a dungeon pit. Anyway, I'm very glad they found you quickly." A professional's mind usually thinks quickly about training situations, but while talking, Du Seokyong suddenly remembered something was wrong. His face froze, looking more blank than ever. "Wait, your name is Private First Class Sun Yun-seo, sir. Holy shit, it's Sun Taiho's daughter." Although Sun Yun-seo didn't want to make it public at this point, she had to admit it. And so the injured person tag was immediately shipped to her neck. Before the bewildered eyes of many, Du Seokyong turned left and right looking for someone. The whole platoon was full of young men, but not a single one looked decent. Finally, he saw Kim Minjun taking the opportunity to train Lee Dongjin. He immediately shouted for him to come over. As soon as Kim Minjun arrived, Sun Yun-seo buried her face in her hands, wishing she had a basket to hide her shame. Her face was as red as if her crush had seen her in a dazed state. How can it be such a coincidence? Very quickly, her face turned from red to black when she heard Du Seokyong's command. "Sergeant Kim Minjun, you will carry her from now on." Kim Minjun thought he had misheard, but no, Du Seokyong repeated the command as firm as a nail. While he was looking at her, the old man was about to go crazy over Sun Yun-seo's identity as Sun Taiho's daughter. Kim Minji really wanted to speak up for Kim Minjun for the performance points, but he couldn't anymore. Kim Minjun also understood very quickly. He accepted the mission in just a few seconds of thought, proactively lowered himself to invite Sun Yun-seo onto his back, but she refused. Kim Minjun put on his most dangerous face and said, "You have another choice, which is to quit the training. In return, you'll immediately lose all your training points. What do you choose?" The good thing about this demon was that besides hitting monsters' weak spots, he also knew how to scratch the itch of achievement-obsessed people like Sun Yun-seo. After a 2-second internal struggle, she finally agreed to get on his back. As soon as Kim Minjun turned his head, he gave a wicked smile. Someone was worried if he could carry the girl, but it wasn't too much of a concern since someone who could carry 4 ironstones at once was no weakling. Kim Cheolmin told him to just follow him and the deputy platoon leader. If you're tired, you must report it immediately. Kim Min-jun, fired up with the prospect of more points, immediately said it was no problem, and even turned to smile at the beautiful girl, making her blush endlessly. Meanwhile, he was cheerfully dreaming of scooping up all the points, not looking tired at all. Kim Min-ji approached to remind Du Seo-kyung about the preferential treatment. The old man had no other choice either. Besides, no one forbids this, and helping the injured is also part of the training program. The rest is, you don't know, do you? Sun Tai-ho, that bastard is not simple. Sitting on the warhorse, Kim Min-jun's son Yoon-seo could clearly see the sympathetic expressions of the other soldiers. And there was the strangeness of Du Seo-kyung and Kim Min-ji, which made her feel more and more pressure the longer she sat. So annoying that her face was about to melt with sweat. If there's any problem, tell me right away. I'll walk by myself. Actually, it would be fine to let her walk on her own now. It's okay. You're even lighter than a boulder. Originally. Sun Yun-seo wanted to ease the awkwardness. But why the hell did whatever came out of this young man's mouth make it twice as awkward? Sun Yun-seo was even stunned and asked back, what boulder? Of course, it's not the addictive kind of rock, but a boulder. Someone her size probably weighs around 50 kilograms. The more he talked, the more embarrassed she became. Sun Yun-seo quickly shut him up to avoid further awkwardness. She said she wouldn't say anything more, but less than 3 seconds of silence later, she offered to repay him later. Kim Min-jun was just waiting for this sentence. He gave a smug grin and said he was also looking forward to it. In his mind, it would be best if she repaid him with a lot of points. Even if you're lighter than a boulder or weigh around 50 kilograms, please shut up. Truly a case of fated enemies. Whenever they opened their mouths, they would bicker. But their mistake was to bicker right in front of these two masters of gossip. Du Seo-kyung and Kim Min-ji exchanged a meaningful look, then looked at the young couple with eyes even more lovey-dovey than people in love. The sky quickly darkened, but the platoon still had to march on. In the midst of such fatigue, the only wish was for the monsters not to suddenly appear. Otherwise, this place already like hell on earth would become even more terrifying. And it was thanks to some injured person they had changed the training intensity from normal to hellish, making many soldiers just scream in tears. About 2 kilometers left. Don't let your guard down. Stay focused until the very end. Pass the word, down platoon leader, Keelman said to those near the front. This was probably the best news during this entire march. Everyone smiled with satisfaction because they were finally about to arrive. Even sergeants like Lee Ik-jun or corporals like Lee Gi-tae couldn't hide their joy. But it was still too early to smile. Just a second after the smile bloomed, Gi-tae shouted an announcement, report, platoon leader. There are monsters in the sky. The red-haired young man's mouth was incredibly unlucky. Whatever he said, it came true. Cheolmin frowned and ordered the entire team to prepare their weapons to deal with the monsters ahead. A flock of flying monsters was approaching. This group was also pitch black, like those black balls, but at least they had eyes to see where they were going. The scary part was that this flock of blackbirds appeared too suddenly and at the perfect time. This made Cheolmin quite worried and flustered. Du Seo-kyung looked at the circling flock of birds with an indifferent expression. They had come this far with a truly injured person, but in the end, they were out of luck. The blackbirds were monsters the size of a parrot, but their teeth and claws were sharp enough to tear flesh. Of course, demon hunters weren't afraid of monsters like these, but in their current condition, they were truly formidable opponents. This flock was more persistent than a hungry leech, even if you ignored them. It was an upgraded version of a Type 1 leech, a darkbone. And besides, I can't see anything because it's too dark. That's the main reason you're standing off to the side. Right? Because it was dark, dealing with the blackbirds was 1,000,000,000 times harder. Du Seo-kyung couldn't see anything, and neither could the soldiers. Even the scarred sergeant exclaimed that this was truly a big problem. Although he couldn't help, the fake injured division commander still mocked Kim Min-ji for giving a weak response that could lead to a clear defeat for the entire army. And the darkness combined with the tired soldiers would not be an excuse for that failure. But Kim Min-ji was seeing the situation clearly. Even if they were all demon hunters, even if they were all healthy, it wasn't certain they could change the outcome. More accurately, the divided formation could be a weakness that made everyone weaker. Right now, They could only trust the platoon leader and wait for his instructions. Kim Cheolmin was also scratched. He was also panicking. But there was still someone with godlike carrying ability here. Seeing his accumulated points at risk of flying away without wings, he couldn't just let it happen. Kim Min-jun was so angry, smoke was coming out of his ears, gritting his teeth and cursing, "Damn it!" And so, Kim Min-jun, carrying Sun Yun-seo, ran off without a word. Sun Yun-seo, on his back, couldn't react to this sudden speed and could only scream. In less than half a second, Kim Min-jun charged like a wild horse to Kim Cheolmin and asked him for a chance. The platoon leader didn't understand what the hell had possessed this demon to ask for a chance while he was responsible for transporting the injured. At this moment, in Min-jun's eyes, there were only 4 words: destructive element. He said everyone had reached their limit and couldn't hold on much longer, but he could handle it all. "So what's your plan?" The two began to exchange secrets. The platoon leader reacted strongly after hearing it, seeming to lack much confidence. Sun Yun-seo, on his back, also sympathized with him. Kim Cheolmin stood frozen for 5 seconds. In the end, he still chose to give Kim Min-jun this chance. If it doesn't work, you'll face the consequences. And if it does, this is the only time. What a generous platoon leader. So generous that Sun Yun-seo suspected he was being too reckless, suspecting she was on the same battle line as 2 crazy risk-takers. At this moment, the flock of black birds suddenly charged into the air in unison. Kim Cheolmin immediately gave an order to move the injured there, but was stopped by Kim Min-jun because there was no time for that. The opportunity was right at this moment. The captain gritted his teeth and made his decision. Finally, he ordered everyone to move behind Kim Min-jun while preparing their firepower. This command made even Du Seokyong bewildered. Are these guys planning to hunt birds with rifles? Sit still and hold on tight, Kim Min-jun said to the person on his back as he loaded his gun. I can't leave the injured behind. He intended to carry a person while hunting monsters. He wouldn't let go of a single accumulated point. Sun Yun-seo didn't know what the hell this bastard was planning, but she still closed her eyes and used all her limbs to cling tightly to Kim Min-jun. The flame of magical energy burned in Kim Min-jun's eyes. For a dark mage, hunting in the dark was as easy as a new recruit's hunting exercise. Looking at the aggressively flying flock of blackbirds, Kim Min-jun gave a smug smile and raised his preloaded gun. These guys are destined to die, especially with the dark arrow skill here to suppress them. He could hide it in a long-range gun, so there was even less fear of missing. This blackbird charged aggressively, not knowing a warhead was waiting for it. This warhead shot straight into its face, sending it to the void. Sun Yun-seo's eyes widened in amazement. She didn't understand how he could hit it in these conditions, not knowing that the chance of dodging a bullet carrying dark energy was as high as winning the lottery. Moreover, dark energy was also very well hidden in this darkness, so he could just fire away to his heart's content. Watching this display of perfect marksmanship, everyone was open-mouthed and speechless. They could only silently marvel at how terrifying this guy was. Moreover, Kim Min-jun was also showing off a bit too much. Of course, he didn't know this. He just happily brought back the good news of total annihilation. The army continued on its way, with staggering legs and dazed faces. When they saw the barbed wire fence, everyone could finally smile. The corps inside was ready to welcome them. Kim Cheolmin led the way into a long round of applause. The tired soldiers dragged their last steps of the exhausting journey. No one could maintain a normal state anymore. Everyone was too tired to breathe. Even Kim Min-ji couldn't hold back his panting. The blonde commander announced loudly, 2nd Battalion, 2nd Company, 2nd Platoon all have passed. This news was also welcome. The whole team was happy after hearing it, and their spirits lifted. The happiest person was probably Kim Min-jun. He had successfully protected his score. Now the medical department will examine the injured who are brought forward. Kim Cheolmin joyfully said to his team members, Everyone has worked hard. Thank you for enduring to the end without anyone being left behind. His expression also clearly showed how excited he was. The team members finally got a real rest, smiling brightly and giving him a thumbs up in response. You worked hard. Seeing this, Sergeant Kim Min-ji immediately praised his team for not showing any signs of fatigue until the very end. Now everyone will move to the temporary barracks and get some rest. Hurry up, brothers. The team had all left. Cheolmin still saw Kim Min-jun carrying a person on his back, calmly staring at the medical staff with a hostile gaze, making people wonder what he had done to be glared at like that. The platoon leader, seeing this, called out to him and also exclaimed, You worked the hardest, always leading the way without fear of danger. Minjun thanked the platoon leader. Actually, I don't mind doing things like that. Losing points is what's embarrassing. Can you put me down now? Son Yunseo finally dared to speak up now. The medical staff was about to turn to stone. Only then was she placed on the stretcher. Yunseo still apologized for bothering Cheolmin's platoon, and also thanked them for their help. Kim Cheolmin was the lord of diplomacy, the king of building relationships, always maintaining his signature smile and a few perfunctory phrases. He said that everyone completing the training safely was already a happy thing, so she didn't need to worry about anything. At this moment, a savage laugh rang out. The owner of this smile was none other than Mr. Du Seokyong. Well done. He also didn't forget to add a compliment behind it, followed by a wicked smile. Finally, the entire platoon had completed the training safely. As he spoke, he lunged forward, wanting to grab Kim Minjun by the neck, but he dodged in time. From the moment he laughed, Min had already seen and judged, but missing once didn't mean he would let him go. Kim Minjun saw him reaching out again and panicked. Again, it wasn't just him who was panicked, but also this crowd of onlookers. Actually, it was more like they were speechless with their commander. Watching Du Seokyong play tag with Kim Minjun without laughing required a high level of emotional control. Just as Du Seokyong caught Minjun, a loyal voice interrupted the atmosphere. Du Seokyong turned with a serious expression which greatly surprised Kim Minjun. The person who arrived was a woman, Colonel Yu Jihai Company commander of the 4th Battalion, 104th Division. Just looking at Mrs. Jihi-do, Seokyong was already sweating bullets. This was an iron woman. Looking at the expressions of these two for the first time in his life, Kim Minjun enjoyed watching drama. Mrs. Jihai ignored Du Seokyong and went straight to Son Yunseo to ask about her injuries. Yunseo reported back that she was only injured in her left ankle. Mrs. Jihai also felt she was lucky to have fallen into a dungeon pit and only sustained that much injury. But she still didn't forget to tell the medical staff to take her for an examination right away. After that, she turned to the pale-faced old man over there and asked, "How was your observation of the training, sir?" Then she smiled charmingly and continued, "May I ask a few questions?" Smiling like that wasn't a good sign. Otherwise, the mischievous Do Seokyong wouldn't be sweating bullets and avoiding the topic. Mrs. Jihai maintained her expression and insisted on asking, "Now what happened after that?" It's better not to say. Early in the morning at the cafeteria, Kim Minjun took a full plate of rice and meat and happily stuffed his mouth until his cheeks bulged. There was no one in the cafeteria but him. The cook here brought a steaming, overflowing tray of fried chicken and invited Kim Minjun to eat. Of course he didn't refuse, and even shamelessly asked to eat alone. The cook smiled gently and agreed to this request because everyone was sleeping anyway, so no one would fight him for food. Kim Minjun took the tray of fried chicken, saying, since the cook had worked hard to make it, he would also try his best to finish it. Recognizing Kim Minjun from the 2nd Company's 2nd Platoon, the cook exclaimed that the 2nd Platoon was the strongest division. He also said he had heard the officers talking while eating, and the company commander had praised Kim Minjun a lot for his active participation. He also heard about Minjun single-handedly dealing with the flock of flying bats that appeared at night. He wanted to confirm this story. "Do you still need confirmation, big bro?" The cook continued to marvel and chatter, also saying that in this mobile training, 70% of the division had failed. Meanwhile, Kim Minjun was trembling uncontrollably, his face flushed red, his eyes closed, and his face scrunched up. He was savoring the wonderful taste of the chicken. On the other side, the leaders had just returned from their meal and were interested in looking out the window at the quiet scenery of the company. The person next to him said that according to instructions this morning was free time, so it wasn't strange that all the soldiers were sleeping in. But they still have to eat breakfast, right? The company commander acknowledged that everyone had worked hard in this training, which greatly impressed the division commander. Captain Kim Chi-woo, commander of the 1st Company, excitedly asked about the rumor that the division commander had come to watch the training of the 2nd Company, 2nd Platoon, and even marveled that he didn't have authority, but was still cool. As he spoke, he saw the faces of the 2 people next to him plummet. The person walking outside even looked at him with a judgmental gaze. Kim Chi-woo thought he had said something wrong. But no, it was just that they were reminiscing about the time the very cool division commander in his mouth was scolded by the 4th Battalion commander as if being splashed with water in the face but could only grumble without saying anything. And the person was so right he couldn't argue, so he had to take it. The other leaders also raised both hands in support of Mrs. Jihee. Moreover, Mrs. Jihee was also a ridiculously scary person. Even the company commander was afraid. But on the other hand, if not for Kim Min-jun this time, the situation would probably be even worse. Kim Min-jun not only possessed overwhelming achievements, but was also praised in front of the division commander. Because of this, the company commander suddenly found the upcoming monthly meeting something to look forward to. Meanwhile, at the 104th Division headquarters, Du Seo-kyung was scrutinizing documents. While Mrs. G was leisurely sipping tea, the dungeon arrangement schedule is this much, that's enough. How is Private First Class Sun Yun-seo? Yu Ji-hai put down her teacup and said she didn't have any broken bones. Her recovery ability was also good. She could finish her treatment tomorrow and could return to her duties. Very much like her father, Du Seo-kyung lamented. As soon as he finished, the phone rang. Du Seo-kyung had just picked up the phone when he heard shouting from the other end. "You bearded spinning hat old man." Du Seo-kyung couldn't remember who was so disrespectful. "It's me, you spinning hat old man. Have you already forgotten my voice? Damn this phone number, let's have a match." The person on the other end of the line was none other than Major General Sun Tae-ho, aka Sun Yun-seo's father, commander of the 107th Division. He was sitting on Du Seo-kyung's desk, his whole body tense with veins signaling an impending storm. It seemed Mr. Son was very angry, speaking without any respect at all. And with someone like Du Seo-kyung, how could he let someone talk down to him like that? "That Mr. Son Tae-ho, what's the matter that you suddenly call me? And what did you call me, old spinning hat?" Du Seo-kyung loudly protested. But the fact that he had a spinning beard was true, so why question it? But that wasn't the main point. The main point was that Mr. Son wanted a match, and was asking where would be convenient. Hearing this, Du Seo-kyung held his head and sighed, asking directly, "Hey old man, are you doing this because your daughter got injured? Aren't you a soldier too, and a general at that?" Hearing Du Seo-kyung speak, Mrs. Jihye was also startled. "What the hell is this guy spouting?" Mr. Sun didn't deny it, but because of that, he also needed someone to practice with. "Stop talking so much. Give me the location." Hearing this, Du Seo-kyung's blood also rushed to his head. He loudly scolded Sun Tae-ho for being childish. He also apologized to him for Sun Yun-seo's injury, but training was like that nothing could be foreseen. Sun Tae-ho chuckled on the phone. "What does an FA like, full damage, full critical hit?" As expected, Du Seo-kyung was provoked until his face turned red with anger, and he cursed. "Damn it! Where is he? Hey, the phone's broken, you old coot." The division commander didn't know he had crushed the phone and was still furiously cursing. Provoked by Sun Tae-ho, Du Seo-kyung's expression immediately went blank with rage, his volume out of control. His face as red as a fighting cock as he roared, "I'm not married because I don't want to be, you hear me?" Seeing her foolish old man go on a rampage, Yu Ji-hee quickly approached to remind him that the major general had already hung up. Du Seo-kyung was still fuming. How could he let the person who provoked him get away so easily? He turned to ask Mrs. Jihee if she had Sun Tae-ho's number, call him immediately. Mrs. Jihee hesitated for a moment and then said, "Calm down, Commander. I think Major General Sun has a right to be angry." Du Seo-kyung, seeing his girlfriend siding with Sun Tae-ho, got even more annoyed. Du Seo-kyung even thought that Yu Ji-hee had informed Major General Sun about Sun Yun-seo's injury. This old man was so angry he was being irrational. Luckily, Yu Ji-hee didn't hold it against him. She gently explained that because the patient had to be evacuated to another place, the hospital naturally had to report to the guardian. Moreover, the information he heard was, his daughter was injured during training, but wasn't taken away immediately because she received special treatment to easily complete the program. That's what everyone at the scene said, so although Mrs. Jihye also felt they didn't need to apologize, an explanation was still necessary. Furthermore, she also knew very well that Du Seo-kyung wanted to show Sun Tae-ho the strength of the 2nd Platoon, 2nd Company, 2nd Battalion. Mrs. Jihye's understanding somewhat made this hot-headed old man. More than anyone, Du Seo-kyung was the one who had witnessed the process of the 2nd Platoon moving the injured. It seemed there was a misunderstanding here, so he decided to go and explain everything. But now that his phone was crushed, he could only use Yu Ji-hee's. Mrs. Jihye was also speechless. Although she didn't like it much, she still let him use it. But only on speakerphone so everyone could listen. Du Seokyong had no other choice but to compromise and agree to sit down and negotiate. The phone-connected Sun Taeho wasn't there, but still knew the two were together. Yoo Ji-hae proactively spoke up first, feeding Du Seokyong his lines. Du Seokyong, getting the hint, also obediently cooperated with Mrs. Ji-hae, speaking very properly and even proactively taking the blame, albeit a bit reluctantly. The surprisingly positive attitude also surprised Mrs. Ji-hae. After clearly expressing all his feelings, Du Seokyong formally apologized to Mr. Sun. Just when he thought everything would be smooth sailing, no Major General Sun delivered a line like a bucket of cold water. "What are you talking about?" This time, even Mrs. Ji-hae was speechless at his utter cluelessness. Actually, Mr. Sun wasn't concerned about his daughter's injury. What he was concerned about was something else. "That kid who carried my daughter, give me his name." What? Mrs. Ji-hae looked at Du Seokyong's expression and felt this time it was hopeless. "How dare you let a guy who isn't even in the medical team carry my daughter? I wouldn't even dare to do that. No matter what, you have to compensate me. What's that kid's name? You'd better spit it out quickly." Yoo Ji-hae quickly grabbed the phone and hung up. So scared even the dial tone made her jump. But the worrying thing was still right in front of them. Division Commander. This time, Du Seokyong couldn't hear Yoo Ji-hae's call for help anymore. He was frantically lost in his own thoughts. His hand gripping the sofa was tense, with veins trembling like a leaf in the wind. "Get the car ready." Right now, Du Seokyong issued a super urgent command. With his face as red as a gak fruit from anger and his disgustingly natural smile, Du Seokyong demanded Company Commander Ji-hae cancel all her plans and immediately go with him to Daejeon. Hearing that, Yoo Ji-hae also turned purple with anger. These two old fools are both stubborn and hot-headed. In another development, Kim Min-jun was walking and singing, as happy as he had ever been. As he passed the water cooler, he didn't notice the black ghost he raised standing there posing like a supermodel, even though it was only a small thing. But very quickly Min-jun turned back. The black ghost happily waved its short arm to greet him. But he wasn't happy. He quickly looked around, then grabbed its head, stuffed it into his pocket, and took off. He quickly looked around, then grabbed its head, stuffed it into his pocket, and took off. "I told you to be careful not to get noticed, yet you're still standing there waving around." Being scolded, the little black ghost also made a series of gestures to defend itself. "Although you're very cute, I find you annoying, unbearably annoying." What Kim Min-jun said made the little one sad. It even started crying. Kim Min-jun reluctantly took out some demonic energy for it to eat, and the little black ghost was immediately happier than ever. "I knew it. This one is only fast at that. What news did you gather? Spill it quickly." The black ghost held out its index finger, and Kim Min-jun also extended his. Immediately he saw a desolate scene that looked like it had been attacked by monsters, and it was a surprise attack. The location was Hwacheon. Hwacheon again. "By the way, have you been there yet? What did you see?" The black ghost, having done its job, immediately puffed up its chest proudly. Disguise is already a D-rank skill. It has been upgraded, so how could it not be more useful? Kim Min-jun knew exactly that this one was begging for food, so if it asks, he'll give it. What excuse will I use to sneak out this time? Even when he got back to the dormitory, he still hadn't figured out what excuse to use. Saying it was a holiday now would be too much, and it would also waste his fixed vacation days just for an unexpected situation. If only I could suddenly be rewarded with a day off, that would be great. Just as he opened the door to his room, he saw his colleagues cheering with joy. While Kim Min-jun was still bewildered, Kim Cheol-min spoke up. "Congratulations, Mr. Kim Min-jun. You have been selected as the best soldier of the division in this combat training program. In addition, the officers also said you will get a reward this time. I really don't know if the reward in the army is a discount coupon or what, that I can take it whenever I want. Anyway, thanks to you, the entire platoon has been rewarded with a relaxing vacation. Is there really a story of wishes coming true in this world? Can I use the reward tomorrow?" Seeing how rushed this guy was, the squad leader asked what was wrong. Kim Min-jun smiled brightly and said nothing was wrong. He just wanted to use the reward tomorrow. Well, he answered so casually, but because he was so outstanding, the squad leader still agreed to consider this request. And so, on a clear day with blue skies and white clouds, Kim Min-jun set foot in Hwacheon. But what the hell is this? A female team doing cleanup duty. So it's all over. Why are there so many hunters here? Damn it, you rude black ghost, spit out your father's magic power right now. Hunter Kim Min-jun. Who the hell is calling me while I'm pissed off? It was none other than his fated rival, Sun Yunseo. Not long before Son Eunseo's all-female squad was sent here for cleanup duty because their poor performance in the last mobility training infuriated Captain Du. That's why you should stop grumbling, pink-haired girl, and save your energy to work faster. However, this cleanup job was truly so tiring that the pink-haired girl couldn't help but complain. Why on earth did a bunch of monsters pour out of the gate right after the training ended? The black-haired girl comforted her, saying she should feel lucky they weren't the assault team. Even so, it couldn't stop this girl from getting annoyed. The black-haired girl looked over and saw the recently recovered Son Eun-seo diligently washing the street. She immediately asked if she had fully recovered and if she was overexerting herself. Son Eun-seo confirmed she was fine, and the black-haired girl marveled at her good recovery ability. But just in case she still told Eun-seo to take it easy, Son Eun-seo was very happy to be cared for by her colleague like that. Just then, Kim Min-jun arrived and caused a commotion. The girls couldn't stop chattering about which company the newcomer belonged to. Seeing this, Son Eun-seo emotionally called out his name. Hearing her, Kim Min-jun not only wasn't moved, but also made a face as if he'd seen a ghost. He was also very shocked and wondered why she was here. Amidst the murmurs of the crowd, Son Eun-seo approached and asked what he was doing here when the support mission was only for their company. Kim Min-jun reluctantly said he was on leave. His reluctant tone of reply annoyed Son Eun-seo, and she pressed him. "You're not lying, are you? Who wears a uniform and comes to a scene while on leave? Could it be desertion? You're talking a bit too much." Ms. Sung Kim Min-jun didn't want to argue. He directly pulled out a confirmation document, making Son Eun-seo quickly correct herself. Damn it. Why can't she ever trust others like this? But even after providing proof, Kim Min-jun wasn't off the hook. He was interrogated as to why he would come here while on leave. Doesn't he know this is a restricted area? Damn it. Why is this woman so annoying? He couldn't just say he came to consume demonic energy. Kim Min-jun could only make up a story that he had something to do here. And hearing it was an emergency, he thought he could help. Just then, a dungeon gate suddenly appeared and opened in a startling way. Seeing this, Kim Min-jun beamed. I thought this vacation was a total waste. But just because Kim Min-jun was happy didn't mean others would be. The pink-haired girl was so scared upon seeing the gate that she was about to cry. It wasn't because she was afraid of the monsters, but because she was afraid of having to clean up the aftermath. The black-haired girl reacted well quickly, calling out to inform the platoon leader and reminding everyone to run to the platoon leader's area. Everyone quickly complied. Son Eun-seo also moved with the team, but remembered to pull Kim Min-jun along. Of course he wouldn't go. Let's see what a reasonable excuse would be. Monsters might rush out, so I'll stay behind to buy some time. Son Eun-seo disagreed with this plan, loudly urging him to get away. But Kim Min-jun was very determined. The assault team has already left this scene. If monsters rush out, everyone will be in danger. He reasoned this way, and assured her that if he encountered danger he couldn't handle, he would be the one to flee faster than anyone, so she didn't need to worry. If you have any equipment, just toss it over for me to borrow. Son Eun-seo found his reasoning plausible, but still didn't fully agree. Kim Min-jun reminded her about her not fully healed leg, urging her to get away so he could conveniently block them. Son Eun-seo reluctantly bit her lip, pulled out a short dagger and gave it to Kim Min-jun, telling him to run immediately if he encountered danger. Then she turned and left, not forgetting to promise to return with the squad members as quickly as possible. No need to be so enthusiastic, lady. Now that everyone's gone, Kim Min-jun can finally show his true skills, right? Among the monsters, there are some that don't want to leave their habitat. So if a dungeon gate had those types, an incident like today's in Hwacheon wouldn't have happened. But just as life has its ups and downs, monsters have their docile ones and their hyperactive ones, especially those with the habit of moving in herds. Therefore, the first candidate to appear is this red pig. It didn't come alone, but led a whole herd, arriving with aggressive, provocative squeals. Oh, for fuck's sake, I haven't even said anything and you're already crowing. Well, then you're just fated to die early. But these guys have consumed a lot of demonic energy, so their vitality is really overflowing. Both sides began to charge at each other with rocket speed. Kim Min-jun seriously shot a few dark arrows, but they had no effect on the pigs. It wasn't enough to pierce the thick, chopping board-like hide of these creatures. Melee players don't like thick skin too much. The three leading pigs even intended to charge at the same time to ram Kim Min-jun and break his spine, but it wasn't that easy. Before they could get close, he leaped high into the sky, then swooped down, slashing continuously. Their thick hides began to show scratches, Besides their skin, these guys don't have any Gucci or Hermes. But I have to admit, their skin is really thick. But if I peel this skin off what's inside, the decay skill was brought into play. The open wounds plus this attack made the pigs spew blood from their mouths. Even so, the lead pig still showed a stubborn spirit, not shedding a tear until seeing the coffin. I thought this one was going to ram me, but no, they rammed each other. That saves me the trouble of finishing them one by one. I just have to stand aside and absorb their demonic energy. After I've absorbed all the demonic energy, I'll give this knife a chance to be sharpened a bit. Thanks to the pigs, his demonic energy stat increased by another 3.